rise for the pledge. Paul, could you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, those fighting the good fight in the Ukraine, and those that continue to suffer loss in the Middle East crisis. Thank you. And the creed, Katie?
The Americans Creed by William Tyler Page. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies.
Thank you. Sal? Steve.
Good evening. My name is Steve Sato. I'm a resident at 134 Bucks Rock Road, and this is regarding the alteration and improvement of Bucks Rock Road. I'm in support of the drainage improvement plan, namely option number 1, presented by the New Milford Department of Public Works to minimize the erosion of Bucks Rock Road. The repeating pattern of severe erosion resulting from heavy rainfall creates deep canyons, ruts, and sudden grade shifts that are nearly impassable by residential service and public utility vehicles. This erosion also jeopardizes the anchoring support that the road provides for utility structures such as power line masts. In addition to drainage plans per option number 1, I want to raise a key point of the need to manage the volume and flow of rainwater prior to the drain point called out in DPW's plan. All of the rainwater and debris that the plan attempts to redirect starts nearly 100 feet upstream from the planned drain. This section severely erodes Bucks Rock Road during heavy rainstorms, and the washout debris from this upstream section has in fact been defeating the current temporary drain, which is now the target of DPW's plan. If no consideration is taken to remedy the impact of the flow of water in the upstream section, the erosion cycle of Bucks Rock Road will continue upstream with no mitigating impact from DPW's planned option number 1. I propose that a drain be placed upstream on Bucks Rock Road at the source of the rainwater, in addition to DPW's drainage option 1, downstream to Mariel Road. If there are other ways of mitigating the existing rainwater pattern upstream of the plan, I would welcome a discussion of those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Stasia?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Jim Stasiak. I live at 139 Bucks Rock Road, and I'm here to talk about the proposed changes to the road and the drainage systems. I'm very much in support of the overall plan because we definitely need to have some mitigation. I'll just read a little bit. This section of Bucks Rock Road, which intersects with Mariel Road, has been difficult to maintain over the years because its downward slope and erosive drainage path. Mr. Healy and his staff have proposed regrading and intersection modifications which should alleviate much, if not all, of the downslope water erosion by diverting a significant portion to a new storm drain and pipe leading to Mariel Road. Julie and Bob Bailey have graciously agreed to have that diversion pipe installed through their property leading to Mariel. This will allow a very efficient diversion of the most erosive water flow away from Bucks Rock Road. The homeowners along the west end of Bucks Rock coming up from Mariel have met with Jack Healy and his staff for detailed explanations of the proposed modifications and to voice our concerns and suggestions. I have a couple of small items which I believe warrant further discussion, which actually have nothing to do with the drainage problems, but simply the revised intersection of Bucks Rock and Mariol Road. We currently have an island there, which serves to, subliminally mark the outgoing and the incoming traffic. The proposal would remove that island and just have a straight road coming out. I'm concerned about that removal simply for the fact that visually, anyone coming and turning up from Mariol and turning onto Bucks Rock won't have any frame of reference as to how far they're coming into the opposing lane of traffic. So what I'm suggesting is that maybe we could revisit that and either come up with a redesign or a smaller island or something to break the flow. We could also use a sign on the northbound side of Mariol indicating that there is an intersection coming up. And a few other little things which I'll give you in a letter, which really don't have, which are not specific to this particular project, but are further along down the road near where my property intersects. I do want to offer my highest praise to Jack Healy, his management staff and road crews for managing a diverse set of constantly changing priorities and objectives with regard to all of New Milford's roads, and in particular, the timely maintenance and repairs to our scenic roads, especially Bucks Rock. I applaud Mayor Bass and our town government for recognizing the importance of road maintenance and repair while balancing diverse and competing needs for resources. New Milford's scenic roads are a positive characteristic contributing to the overall perception of the town as being stable and well cared for. Positive preventive maintenance and logical forward thinking are indicators of a solid infrastructure built on care and respect for our environment and our residents. Thank you for listening to our concerns at these meetings, and may we all benefit from these endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Katie?
Right. So I give this to someone?
I'll take it, sure.
Okay.
Katie Francis, 123 Candlewood Mountain Road. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone here and those people at home watching and go on the record on behalf of the United Way of Coastal and Western Connecticut and the Greater New Milford Women's Club. Thanks to volunteers who not only helped put 360 bags together, but those who donated food, gift cards, money to help us do that. So a couple years back, we did 275 families, and that was the highest we had done. 360 families this year. And I think it speaks to what many of us realize, is that we have a lot of our neighbors are struggling, and it's without the help of other neighbors in our community, we wouldn't have been able to help them. So I thank everybody in New Milford for being so generous and so ready to step up and help. And like I like to say, like the mayor says, that is really what makes New Milford the best town in the USA, because everybody pitches in. And that we just did one part. There were other churches and other groups who also helped to make Thanksgiving a really warm family gathering for these people. So that just really, can't afford it or just need a little help up. So thank you all.
Thank you. Julie?
That was the second worst, not the worst.
Okay.
The reason that all of us are speaking tonight from Bucks Rock Road is that our understanding was that there was going to be an original presentation tonight by DPW, but in fact, it's been postponed, I think, until December.
Julie, can
So,
you just give your name and address?
oh, Julie Bailey, 144 Bucks Rock Road, New Milford. We've lived on Bucks Rock Road now for almost 30 years, and this really has been our home. And New Milford, in so many, many ways, has been extraordinary to our family and to our community. And I want to especially thank DPW tonight for all that they have done in helping us deal with this issue that we have on our scenic road. The residents clustered along sharply sloping Mariel Road entrance to dangerously storm-battered Buck Rocks Road strongly support the New Milford Department of Public Works proposal to control the repeatedly destructive impact on the designated scenic road of increasingly intense rainstorms over the last few years. But let's step back and ask why gravel scenic roads like Bucks Rock Road are so key to New Milford's semi-rural beauty. Just ask all the walkers, the runners, the bikers, the horse riders, and the parents teaching kids to ride bikes on quiet gravel roads like ours. Like our really beautiful and often underused trail system in this town, which eventually, I suspect, will attract people who don't have to go to Vermont to find extraordinary places to hike. Like the trail system and the 19-site Barn Quilt Trail, they are treasures and part of our town's attraction, not only to visitors, but they are a key contributor to our residents' quality of life. And when they say they love New Milford just the way it is, these are the kinds of treasures that help to keep that town just like that. And especially for those who've lived here all of their lives and fear losing New Milford's special character to ongoing change. About 30 years ago in the 90s, when New Milford residents Jeremy Levin, and I think you all remember Jeremy Levin from his great stuff that he did during COVID, and his wife Marjorie Felberg, who is now not only a New Milford resident, and not only the first woman to get, I think it was government approval for having a processing, is what the polite word we use for it, facility on her farm. She's an extraordinary woman, and she's now the chair of the land trust that began in our town, which used to be Weontanog and is now known as the Northwest Conservation District. She's the new chair of the board. Anyway, their effort to create the Scenic Road Ordinance and designate 26 roads, scenic roads in perpetuity, they believed that the only threat to preserving these widely beloved rural roads would be unmanaged residential development of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Climate change and shifting weather pattern, bringing more frequent torrential rains to northwest Connecticut, was on no one's mind. And in fact, I myself had no idea the impact this would have on our town when we did that whole thing with Sustainable Connecticut and we did all that stuff on climate change. It shocked me what was going to happen. And one of the things they said would happen is we could expect much more frequent and much more torrential and much more destructive rainfall. And this last summer, as all of you know, we had that happen. And it especially happened on Bucks Rock Road. This summer, it was on all of our minds along our road. Repeated fierce rainstorms opened a jagged gully, and I have passed around photos of that. And honestly, that was just the second worst storm that we had. The worst one was just unbelievable, and we were going to go to Home Depot and buy that yellow tape to put around so that nobody would fall into it. It opened a jagged gully that was 2 feet deep, and the town-owned verge, which is the edge that the town owns on the side of each road, lost almost 4 feet in width, arriving within 15 inches of one of the telephone poles, as you can see. The liability for the town, if a car's side wheels dropped into the gully, was very clear to us at that point. After every storm, DPW crews were out there filling the 60-foot-long gully. You said it was 100 feet, I think, right? Gully, with sand, gravel, and stone, using huge graders to level the roadbed anew, but each time reducing the height of the roadbed well above the original height, and below the massive bypass pipe opening it over 20 years has dumped huge amounts of sand, stone, and debris into our lower meadow. When you enter Bucks Rock Road today, you look up at the stone walls bordering the village, and you feel like you are in a tunnel going along.
We
And
have
every
30
year,
seconds left. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
30 seconds left.
my 5 minutes are over? Can I have?
No, 30 seconds you have. Continue talking for 30
Oh,
seconds.
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Almost done.
No worries. Take your 30
The
seconds.
cost of the repeated fills and grading and manpower and material deployed on our row is in easily the tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars. In fiscal 21-22, maintenance for the 27 gravel road, all the gravel roads in our town, including the 27 scenic roads in DPW's budget, was over $300,000. But on our road, because of the sharp slope at the entrance and the sheer force, which is staggering, of those storm waters, the maintenance never stopped. Now finally there's a solution that's expected to reduce the maintenance on our road exponentially. Recently, Jack Healy, the director of New Milford Public Works, and members of his senior leadership team met with residents on our road to offer us 2 solutions, which he will present to the town council in December. We endorse heartily DPW's best practices solution, and my husband and I are perfectly willing to have our lower meadow shared between the Deers and the town of New Milford in terms of all of the water going down. And what we are willing to do is to formalize the informal easement we gave DPW years ago across our lower meadow to divert and disgorge the excess storm waters that would go into the existing storm management drainage. And, oh, I'm sorry, it's not an infrastructure, but what it is, it's, Jeff, what is the name of that?
Julia, we are.
Catch basin.
You don't have more time.
Okay, one more paragraph. The process for DPW to obtain a green light to do any changes to a designated scenic road is deliberately multi-stepped and onerous, involving permission first from the town council, followed by the land use commissions, and a special ad hoc scenic road committee to be established. What we, the residents of Buck Rock Road, will commit to doing, it is whatever DPW needs by way of support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to hand those in?
I'm sorry?
We'll hand those notes in?
Yeah. You want this?
Yeah, that's what you read for me.
This goes with those 2 photos that I
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it for Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Katie?
Item 4, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda, items 4A through 4D.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment on behalf of the New Milford Public Library. They're requesting permission to accept a donation in the amount of $25 from Catherine Sweet. That's to be used for library materials and programming. And for Parks and Rec, they would like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Prouse of Kent Road for their donation of a Christmas tree that has been placed outside the entrance to the town hall, and they'd like to thank them for their continued generosity.
Awesome. Okay, next is
Will you
Mayor.
vote? Vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, next is Mayor's comments. First, want to thank all of our residents that voted in our municipal elections. Also want to thank our voter registrars, their staff, the town clerk's office, the New Milford Police Department, both the town and the school facilities departments for all of their work. And a big thank you as again, the process works. So great job to everyone there. The swearing-in ceremony will be held on the 30th of this month at 7 p.m. at the library. Senator Steve Harding will be the master of ceremonies. Judge Langry will be swearing in the members-elect. So if you can, please come and witness our swearing in, which will be great. Want to congratulate the New Milford Green Wave varsity football team for their win over New Fairfield. They had a 7-3 season this year, so great job to them. Want to also congratulate the field hockey team as Coach Chu and the whole team there as they had the SWC championship, so great job to them. Congratulations to the soccer club of the New Milford's U11 Goat soccer team as they are the Northwest District champions. And then want to congratulate the New Milford High School athletes, and this is just, I think, from what I understand, the first wave. But Jack Balsey, who will be attending Sacred Heart, Maddie Bell, who will be going to Dean College, Megan McLaren, Providence College, Jason Mueller, Connecticut State U, Izzy Green, James Madison, as they all are moving forward with their athletics in the college. So congratulations.
Great.
I want to congratulate the Ice Hawks Pee Wee A1 team as they went undefeated at the Holy Name Icebreaker Tournament. And then the Squid and Squid A1 teams both took their championships at the Holy Name Icebreaker Tournament as well. So from what I understand, all the teams made it. These were the ones that made actually won in the championship game, so congratulations. I want to congratulate New Milford Bernard Henry and Michael Seaflew and their pet quail. His name's Finn, as they have a new children's book out in their series. And the first one is The Imaginary Adventures of Finn, and the first book is The Missing Sunflower Seed. So congratulations. It's an awesome book. I got one from my grandson, so it's pretty cool. Want to thank, on November 19th, Alessandra over at Mama's Tacos. She celebrated her 2nd anniversary. And this past Friday, Ricardo Vega did a formal grand opening for his restaurant, which is the Mexican Kitchen, Vegas Mexican Kitchen. They had some mariachi music playing there as well. So that's great to see the continued investment in town. And then want to thank New Milford Chamber of Commerce Director Bob Reeling, President Jen Birdseye, the Chamber Board, United Methodist Men's Group, New Milford Park and Rec, Beth Conklin, she was doing the DJing, and Mr. and Miss Prouse, who donate the wonderful tree that's in front of Town Hall each and every year for the wonderful tree lighting we had. And I think it was the most people we ever had, which is great to see it continuing to prosper. So that was great, so thank you. Also want to thank the Garden Club for their work not only on the bandstand but throughout town. I mean, it looks truly beautiful. Also want to thank, let's see who else we're thanking here, Colleen Purcell of Scott's Landscaping, as they did the decorations at Town Hall out here in the front. It's beautiful, kind of a salute to the veterans. Also did the one at the police department. It's beautiful. And the one that the Litchfield County Irish Club donated funds for that tree over by the Veterans Bridge. Looks absolutely beautiful. We also have our we're also going to be doing some decorating at the Rotary, because we have the tree that was put up. So thanks to our DPW staff, will be decorating that one this week as well. Also, for those that can't afford it, would appreciate donating to the New Milford Bulls Varsity Cheer, as they're going to the Nationals. And on November 30th, they're actually going to be having a fundraiser, and we'll be pushing more of that out at Panera Bread. You go there and purchase some items from there, and 25% of the purchase goes to help the Bulls Cheer, which is amazing. Also want to thank Superintendent Parlato, who's here tonight, as well as Sandra Sullivan. Is starting on December 1st, no-cost lunch will be provided to all of the New Milford citizens for the rest of the school year. So I think that's a great thing, especially for our residents that are, some that are struggling. I think that's great. Moving on to police, and we have Chief Ceruto here. And Chief, if you could come up for a minute, we're talking a little bit about safety and traffic, and kind of a couple of the stats that we talk about here is our motor vehicle stops year to date. So going from the year 2022, this time in 2022, the last year was 1,235 stops. As of this year, this time this year, we are at 2,122. That's up 887 stops, which is a 71% increase. Motor vehicle accidents, and we always talk about this, one is too many, but I'm happy to report that when you look statistically at the year 2022, at this time at that year in 2022, at 825, 130 were in the parking lots. This year, we are at 782, which is down 43, and that's about a 5.4% reduction. And if you take a look at the national statistics, to be down is quite a feat. So I want to thank you to Chief Ceruto and the men and women. And before I turn it over to you, Chief, lastly, I'm very proud to announce that we moved up one this year in the SafeWise Safest Cities. We are now ranked number 7th. Last year we were 8th. So that's a great job to the Chief, to the men and women of the police department, and to our community at whole that actually help us by calling in when they see something, say something. So Chief, I'd like to turn it over for you a moment to just talk a little bit about what we're doing so far.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
and I appreciate you mentioning the men and women of the New Milford Police Department, because they're the ones that get it done. And I have two of our leaders in our department here today, Lieutenant Wheeler and Lieutenant Grabner, both with 30 years of experience. So a wealth of knowledge addressing problems such as this, traffic safety, crime, and they're an invaluable resource and a trusted resource for me. Our officers have done great work in the area of traffic enforcement. In the last 2 months, we've done almost a year's worth of stops. In the last 2 months, we stopped 792 vehicles. Most of those are on Danbury Road. 582 of them were on Danbury Road. And the officers are making a strong point. They're giving infractions. They've issued $76,500 in infractions. That's just in the last 2 months.
And Chief, just for the people watching, they think that the town actually gets the ticket monies, but that actually goes to the state.
Right. It does go to the state. 66,000 of those tickets were issued on Danbury Road. But I have been in contact with the commissioner. I certainly am making him aware of the good work that our men and women are doing in the area of enforcement. He has commented that we are a model to follow within the state insofar as traffic enforcement. So I'm very proud of that. And I couldn't ask more from our officers who go out there every day addressing the concerns of the community. Nevertheless, you did mention our increase in motor vehicle stops, almost 1,000 motor vehicle stops more than last year at this time. We have given out 726 infractions this year compared to 366 last year, so quite an increase. And again, the officers are taking it very serious and realize that enforcement is a big part of what we have to do. The officers are also educating our public, so when they pull somebody over, they're really making a strong point to talk to the operators and tell them how they need to drive safely. Our officers pulled over a 17-year-old last week going 73 miles per hour on Danbury Road. So while we're trying and working hard to get the message out there, there still seems to be that gap, and we're still working hard and know that there's a lot of work to be done. Our officer, I was very proud of him. He used a unique approach. He took the operator's license. So there is a law that allows the police to do that. The officer employed that law. He took the license, and we basically suspended the kid's driver's license for 2 days. And 2 days later, he had to come back with a parent before we would give the license back. So we're trying to employ unique ways to address this system. We're certainly very concerned with 16 and 17-year-olds who are driving like this. It's unacceptable, and we need to do everything we can to prevent tragedies. As you may have mentioned, Mayor, accidents are down. We're down about 43 accidents in total. And I know at other meetings we've talked about reducing the number of accidents with injuries. And we're seeing a decline in that this year. Last year to date, we had 66 accidents with injuries, and this year we're at 50 accidents with injury. So our overall goal with all of this enforcement and education is to bring down the number of accidents with injury.
Chief, sure, Katie?
If you have just a rough estimate, now this was a fantastic 2 months.
Yes.
Unbelievable. What would you say the percentage of those stops were due to distracted driving because of cell phone?
So we did have quite a few different reasons for different stops. I'm looking here to see if I do have that stat. I don't see it here, but the officers were cognizant of that. We realized that that's one of the major factors in accidents within our community. So there was a 2-week period where we focused on that solely. So I can't give you a percentage, but I can tell you that we are on it and we understand the importance of that. We received a grant for distracted driving, and that grant was in part for the 2 weeks that we did in October, but then we have another 4 weeks in April where we're going to enforce just distracted driving.
Because it is, I have to say, probably the most comments I receive from anyone when the subject of traffic comes up is, what are you going to do about all these people that are on their phones, and they're going slow, then they're going fast, and they're coming across the line, and
And part of our grant was trying to come up with a unique idea to address this distracted driving. And, it's kind of difficult in a marked police car, so we're going to get officers out there in unmarked vehicles. I'm also going to have officers at intersections dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt looking in the car and watching people at the stoplight and having someone down the street stop them. So we've got some unique ideas.
Well, I'm glad I can say that you're on the case.
Yes.
Thanks.
And thank you, Chief. Chris?
Chief, thanks to you and everybody on the PD for everything you do every day, including this, and I appreciate the focus on this. My question is, and I'm not looking for specific time frames, but there's been a lot more focus on traffic. How sustainable is that? Is that sustainable, that level of focus?
It is, and you bring a good point. We have made this extremely excellent effort in the last 2 months, and anecdotally, we believe that the numbers are coming down, specifically insofar as the speed. But we need to keep that pressure on, so we need to keep it up. The mayor and I have been in discussions on a traffic enforcement officer, and I would really like to see that approved in our next budget year. A traffic enforcement officer will allow us to address speeding, distracted driving, drunk driving, allow us to apply for grants, manage these grants, develop a good solid base of data, and I think it would be something that this town could benefit from greatly.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
What percentage you might not know this, percentage of the town's accidents happen on Route 7 Danbury Road or whatever? Do you know that number?
I would say because most of the traffic does occur there, that almost half of the accidents do occur there, but
Yeah.
that's where we have obviously tens of thousands of cars pass through in a week,
So at least half.
And so far as the volume, I would estimate it approximately that.
Okay, and was all this accomplished in normal hours, or was there a lot of, what was the overtime number
Yeah,
for this, all the enforcement?
that's an excellent point. The officers worked very hard during their normal shifts. We deployed a traffic enforcement officer for 2 months who was solely focused on Route 7, and we had to expend overtime to the amount of $7,000 to this point within those 2 months.
So 2 months, it was 7,000.
Yes.
Okay. And so for budget-wise, is that sort of the cost that it would be, and or that's to be
I think
determined?
that would be a reasonable cost moving forward every 2 months.
That's great. And then I learned that there were the accidents on Route 7, just in sort of a 2-week window, there were 38 accidents from the time of the horrible accident where there was a fatality on 9/23 to 11/19. There were 38 and 10 ambulances were called. Is that a reduction, or does that seem?
Well, the stat with 10 accidents or ambulances called is an interesting concept, because there might not be an injury. You know, it might be
Right.
dispatched as a possible injury.
Okay.
They might get there and there's not an injury. So that one's hard to gauge, other than I can say accidents in general in town with injuries have come down. And what was the other point with the number of accidents? One other issue is on Danbury Road, we have a lot of businesses. So if we're talking about accidents, there could be 100 accidents a year in parking lots on Danbury Road. The address would come up Danbury Road, and it would be considered an accident on Danbury Road. So, you know, we're careful to always differentiate the parking lot accidents with the highway accidents, roadway accidents.
That's great. I had put this on the agenda. Are we talking about Route 7 later, or I had just had a question for you? Was there any update from the state?
Yes, I was going to talk about
Oh,
that
beautiful.
as well. And any other questions for Chief right now? Sal?
Just one question, Chief. Thanks for your help and great work. I think we have the best police department in the nation.
I agree.
That's my personal opinion. Probably not only mine. The question I have: do we trace like DWIs because of the the free use of marijuana nowadays? I would like to know how many of, stops, incidents, accidents were cause of that.
Yeah, so the data on marijuana is still to come. You know, it's been a short period of time, and after a year, I think we're going to have some good data from the DOT and such. But DUI's on my mind with the Christmas holiday, New Year holiday coming up. We have a DUI grant that we're going to employ over Christmas and New Year's, so we're going to be strictly focusing on DUIs. In addition, in the upcoming year, we've been in discussions where we want to do a DUI spot check, so we really want to be more prominent out there and focus on DUI also.
Wonderful. If we can get statistics of that, that would basically help trace of what happens if
Yes, even
we're in trouble or not for that.
We're interested in the effect of legalization of marijuana and drug driving, which links to drunk driving.
Indeed. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chief.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Staying on to Route 7, and Jack, I'll ask you for a little bit of updates too on Route 7. First is starting at Route 7 and Route 37. And Route 7 up in that area is called Kent Road versus Danbury Road. And there was a request made to actually put a traffic light installation on that intersection. So we finally got the response back from the Connecticut DOT. And basically what they said was, based on the review, the Connecticut DOT is not recommending the installation of a traffic signal at this time due to the following. Number one, although traffic volumes subsided during the pandemic, traffic volumes have returned to pre-pandemic levels and based on current counts are consistent with historic counts on this intersection. Based on the results of the 3-year crash review, the prevailing pattern of crashes is a rear-end type. Based on national studies, it is likely that a traffic signal may increase or add the incidence of this type of crash. It is important to note that this analysis indicated that aggressive driving was overrepresented as a contributing factor compared to similar intersections across the state. Although a traffic signal is not recommended at this time, during the course of our review, it was noted that sight lines to the intersection along Route 7 could be improved through vegetation management, of which they put in work orders to Connecticut DOT, as they're the ones responsible for the state roads. And as they said, as a work order's been submitted to trim overhanging branches within the state right-of-way. Additionally, the Connecticut DOT will be making changes to signage at this intersection, including the intersection and installation of a stop ahead signs along Route 37, intersection warning signs along Route 7 in accordance with the Federal Highway Administration's published proven safety countermeasures, which is aligned with the crash experience identified at this intersection. They've also allowed, am I correct, Jack, for the town itself to put in some signage?
Yeah, they recommended or allowed us to put on, prior to the intersection, a speed sign, one of those that, as you drive down, says you are going this fast. We have to get that approved. They're recommending it to us, but we got to go back to them and get approval on the sign that we've selected, which we picked the one that's normally used. We have sent that back to them for approval. Once we receive their approval back, which I expect, Chuck will follow up again with them, then we're going to order the sign, which is in their neighborhood of between $3,000 and $4,000. It'll be a solar sign, and we will install it north of that intersection, so people coming south toward that intersection will know how fast they're going.
And then, Jack, moving on down towards 7, now we're down by the high school.
Yeah.
So we did get the approvals for the school zones. And I know at our last meeting, we talked about the actual signs. You'll see the flashing lights that are there.
Yep.
Where are we in that process?
Again, we've got approval on reducing the speed. We've done that with we talked with the PD. They're in agreement with us. So we've got approval from DOT to do that through OSTA. What we've done now is gone back to the engineering department. We have proposed signs to go there. I expect approval on those relatively quickly. They are the standard signs. There's nothing unusual about these signs, but you have to go through the process for breakaway posts and things like that. Again, they'll be solar, and we are expecting to get approval on those shortly. And then when we do, we will put in and order all the signs to go up and put those in.
And we'll be bringing this back to the council because the state said that we could do it as long as we pay for it. So we're going to be coming back to the council as they will not pay for that. So we'll have to pay, and we'll be bringing it up once they give you the okay as to what that will actually cost the town. And this will be not only for New Milford High School, but for every school. So that's a cost that we'll bring back up to the council once we get those numbers. And then, Jack, can you also stay on the fact of, we have lots of people walking on Route 7, which has been a danger.
Yep.
So we're still waiting for the finalization of the light study that they're doing about Route 7, lighting it up from, what I had proposed, which was the condo south, but they're even talking about going down over by Faith Church all the way to Veterans Bridge. But with that being said, we did get grant for sidewalks.
Yep.
Can you tell the council and the public when we're going to see groundbreaking on the sidewalks?
That will happen in the spring. Right now, we are, there's a process. You have an inspector on the project. We went to got an RFQ on that. We received the proposals. We reviewed them with the state, and We came to an agreement on selecting one. We had a meeting with them this week. By Friday, we should have the company who's gonna do the inspection come back with their qualification package, which again goes to the state for approval. Talking to Mark Jewell at the state, he expected that approval to come back within a couple of days. We expect to meet with them again next week to finalize an agreement on the cost so that we can, and then once we have that again goes to the state, they approve it, we approve it, and then we'll go out to bid, and we expect to start the work in the spring, and that will extend sidewalks from south of the high school all the way up to JPCC. There'll be a couple breaks in it where there's already sidewalks, and then also up to, from Main Street up to Canterbury School.
And any new construction, say for instance, the Dairy Queen, zoning has it as a requirement that a sidewalk be put in front.
Yeah.
So those gaps that you're talking about will be filled once, you know, you do any kind of new large renovation or from land to land up.
Yeah,
Right.
and Mayor, as you and I talked, as part of the grant, I asked them to include in the grant, if you go down toward the high school, there's a bus stop for the bus, and there's nothing there. There's a mud pond, piece of mud on the side of the road. I've asked them to include in the grant that we will put covers and concrete spots for people to stand. We're trying to make this safe, so those are also been included into the project.
You mean a little,
Yep, just like we have on Main
like the
Street.
post office?
Yeah.
And then I also spoke with Connecticut DOT to get an update on the traffic safety audit. What date we're gonna come up and walk it. The lady was out on Thanksgiving break. I did put in another call and an email today. As soon as I get the response, I'll send it to the council, so we can work on the traffic safety audit as well. And that's pretty much what we have on traffic safety Route 7. Now on Grove Street, we'll be talking about that shortly. Jack will talk a little bit about KSE Engineering and what their recommendations is for making Grove Street and those intersections, Fordyce and Mine, be safer. So Jack will talk a little bit about that. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a quick question.
Okay.
What will the speed be? I realize it's different for the schools, but let's say the high school, which is Route 7, where there's the most speed. What will the school zone speed be, or what did we ask for?
Well, we asked for, see, I'm familiar with this because of Litchfield. If you go up Route 202 in Litchfield, it's been very effective there.
Yes.
As you go up towards the
Oh,
center
yeah.
school, it drops down to 25, that's it.
Yeah.
We couldn't get that here because of the traffic volume, but it drops to, I believe, 35 miles per hour.
And what about at, say, like Scotticook? Well, of course, that's a small road. Hill and
Each
Plain.
road is different, like.
That's what I mean, yeah.
If you go in front of Scotticook, I think it's down to 25 miles an hour on
Okay.
those roads. On Route 7, it's gonna be a little higher, but we've budgeted and we've talked to the mayor about having signs at every school, so that when people come to those zones, they have to drop the speed down, and the chiefs knows better than I about the enforcement, but, they'll be able to enforce those. It has been very successful in the locations.
Good. One other question. On Route 7 and 37 you were talking about, which I think is fantastic because I go through there, will that notice sign, slow down, stop ahead, be on Route 7 or
Yeah.
on 30? Oh, okay.
Route 7, coming south on Route 7,
that's-
you know how you come up over that knoll?
Know it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Glad to hear that.
Chris?
On the heights, the school zone issue, is that speed limit for certain days and times when school's in session?
Not in set. What it does is you look at your traffic volume,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the times. We have to work with the school, and Superintendent Perlato gave us all the information we needed. They tell us what time the buses are coming and going, and there's a certain window during that time those speeds drop down. When students are in school and you don't expect buses and traffic, it goes back up to the normal, and then again, when they get released, it goes back down again.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I think the piece of information we're missing is the 80th percentile speed on that road, because that, like, posting speed limits is not effective. It is road design that sort of shows you, research shows that that's how people will drive, is how the road is designed. So I wonder if there is research, and I'm curious to see the design of the sidewalks, but I know there's a lot of research where, people are driving between 45 and 70 miles an hour on a road, 4-lane road. If it's safe to have a sidewalk I don't know how far out the sidewalk's gonna be, if there's any barrier. I just wonder about the overall thinking of this whole plan. You know, that's sort of why I was thinking, when you go to DOT, I don't know the language that was used. Was there language such as, we wanna create the safest environment from this stretch to this stretch? I mean, because we're kind of doing it piecemeal, right? We're like adding a sidewalk here and a sidewalk here, and then a death happens for a student, and then we all worry. So I wonder, what was the language used going to DOT to sort of think about the safest, most all-encompassing? I mean, you're rolling your eyes, Tom. I don't quite understand why, because I feel like this is an important conversation to have before we actually start laying the concrete down. So,
And so when we did go up and speak with the commissioner, first thing that his team, which is the engineers and himself, was the safety of those driving and those that are walking. And one of the things I thought that was very interesting, and I preface that as I'm not an engineer, Jack was with us and he is our head engineer, so to speak,
yeah.
was that they were saying that the highways of the 70s and 80s, of which these are not the highways of where we're going to be going. So they're looking at different ways of moving people from A to B. The sidewalks they felt was in compliance. It was safe. They're the ones that sign off on it. It's their road. If you go to other parts of Connecticut, you will see sidewalks on thoroughfares just like this there. I think a really big issue is, as we've talked about here before, is not only the safety of design, but the safety of people making the right decision. Deciding is, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to do the speed limit, rather than saying, today, I'm going to go 85 miles an hour down this road. I'm going to weave in and out of traffic. Unfortunately, those are decisions that people make, and they're bad ones. So we can only rely on what our engineers tell us, what the state tells us. It's their road. And, you know, provide the consistency. I mean, Jack, you could talk a little bit more about that than I can, as I'm not an engineer.
Well, I mean, this particular project goes back quite a few years. And it's actually a project which is receiving federal funding, and was requested for that purpose, to improve safety, but also to improve walkability of towns, which is another thing we're trying to do. And so it was requested for that purpose. I mentioned a gentleman, Mark Jewell. We are involved with the process. The design standards are established by the federal government, and we follow those on this particular project. The company, Beta, was the company who won the bid. They designed it, and it works very closely with DOT, with the DOT's consulting engineer, which is Mark Jewell, is his firm, and then with the town. They meet the standards that are applicable for that type of a traffic. I can tell you, ours are going to be further off the road. If you go to Torrington right now, they did one up 202 up East Main Street. There's the road, and there's the sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a 4-lane road there?
It is a, going up,
It's 2 lanes.
it's a.
4 lanes?
It's four.
It's 4 lanes, and there's no median. It's like, I go up with my Dodge Pit, and I grew up driving that road since I've been 16. I go up there, it is, you're kissing the car next to you when you go up it.
Right.
So this is the type of, our sidewalks, I believe, will be much safer than those sidewalks.
They'll be
That's
wider.
my opinion,
They'll
yeah.
be wider.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the width of the sidewalk is standard. The distance from the road to the sidewalk will vary.
Mayor, quick question, Jack. So, Jack, just to be clear, the places we're putting sidewalks are in town right-of-ways, right? And some of them are filling in gaps
Yeah.
from commercial spaces, which is why we're going, as Ms. Ram said, kind of all over the place. It's to fill in spots. Is that correct?
It's mostly in the state right away.
Right.
Remember, Route 7 is a state road, and so we're working with them, and we've had multiple meetings out on the site, walking it, and they have been intricately involved with this, making sure that we're doing this. This has been I will say, probably, I think the mayor's been very generous about this, a little bit of an arduous task, trying to go back and forth to get this done. It's been
This conversation has been going on for a long time. The past 2 POCDs, which I sat on, both of them, both called for more walkability in town and sidewalks. That was in rooms like this with hundreds of people coming in and expressing their opinion.
Yeah.
So I know this has been very well thought out.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that the gaps are finally getting filled. You know, I was a proponent of, Canterbury School had asked us because the kids were walking down in the middle of the street. You know, other people walking up and down from the condos, and this has been going on for 20 years, have expressed that. And the fact that we're making this safer, and that hopefully the lighting will get a little bit better, and hopefully we can encourage people to not wear black while they're walking in the middle of the street. I think that would be a big help for us to help to get people aware, either at those stop signs, say please wear bright colors, or stay off the road. Combination of what you're doing, I think, is going to be very successful.
We'll also be putting crosswalks in now. I don't know if you follow, you know, I get them from all over. And in my hometown, I live in Litchfield, but Denise Rapp, the first selectman, just worked with DOT to eliminate a crosswalk, which has been, I mean, I've been in town since 1966, and that crosswalk's always been there, and they just removed it because they've had multiple accidents and multiple people getting hit by cars in front of the town hall, and they're separating these out so that people are gonna go to the crosswalks. I took a class recently with, through the T2 Center in Yukon, and one of the things they stress is to get people to cross at a crosswalk. A lot of the accidents are because people are crossing mid-block.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think I'm probably one of the worst offenders, but you're supposed to cross the walk, you know, at the sign. And the other thing is, when you were kids, you're told, look at the driver, make sure you catch their eyes, so that you know that they see you before you cross. Don't take, you know, I know that we're gonna have crosswalking signs. Don't ever take it for granted that because the sign says walk, that you just walk. You know, if you walk in Boston, you know you shouldn't do that.
Thank you, Jay.
Just the last point, just to be clear, I'm 100% in favor of walkability. In fact, I would encourage it and have said that the road should be redesigned, repainted to encourage a bike lane and wider walking sidewalks. So that is 100%, I agree with that. I would just encourage you to look at pedestrian deaths. That's up, you know, pedestrian deaths with traffic vehicle. That's all up, and the research has changed significantly in the last 5 years with sidewalks this close to this type of a roadway. So I would just encourage more investigation. But thank you so much for, you know, everything you've been saying.
I mean, just, and so you know, I mean, this isn't the last thing we're trying to do. I know we've talked about the Wellsville project probably for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because when we did our presentation to the residents, we were going to do the road. And the residents didn't want us to just do the road. They wanted sidewalks and walkability. We went for get a grant on the sidewalk, and then as we got into it, the Westcog said, well, no, we'll also help you with the road. So we're almost at a point where we can go out and we'll be doing some more borings out there, but we're almost at a point to start getting over the edge, and we'll have all new sidewalks there. I know we're looking at sidewalks on Grove Street and other places, so this is not going to be by far the last project.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jen.
And staying on safety, just real quick, the chief and I at our meeting today, we talked about the success of our program when it comes to the permitting process at Sega Meadows. And then also really being focused on our waterfront areas, whether they be the Housatonic, whether they be Candlewood Lake. And this is the second year in a row that we've had 0 drownings, which I think, Chief, we looked at the data. I believe this hasn't happened in how long? We've always had a few deaths each time.
We've been here a long time, and we'll verify that it hasn't happened.
Great.
So we're going to continue to stay on that course, continue to fine tune that. So just want to thank, you know, not only our New Milford Police Department, but our fire department, because they're called upon if there's someone that happens to, you know, fall into the river. And just, again, a great job. Also, council had asked for an update when it came to the American Relief Funds with the HOPE Fund, and I'd ask Ivana to come up and talk a little bit more about the funds to the council. Thank you, Ivana, for coming.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I just wanted to take a moment, and before I get started, I just want to echo Katie Francis' remarks about Thanksgiving. Since we registered the families, including the seniors, this year, and the numbers did exceed any expectation, and they met the challenge, and the community met the challenge, and we just wanted to thank everyone for helping us feed our community. I also wanted to thank the Sustainability Fund for approving funds for the Community Field Bank and the Hope Fund. And in light of that, I wanted to share a little bit about the Hope Fund and the ARPA funds that we've been using. The Hope Fund is it's an emergency assistance program for housing. It can help with mortgage. It can help with rental, whether it be current, back, or first month's rent for somebody who is a current resident of New Milford. Historically, it can also help for security deposit, but it's kind of a 6 of 1 when it comes to first month's rent. Over the past 5 years, the amount of people that we've served for the Hope Fund, back in 2018 and 19 fiscal year, we assisted 42 residents and expended over $17,000 in the Hope Fund. The next year, we helped 34, but only expended $8,000. One of the reasons for that is because it's one of our less known funds, so it doesn't get a lot of donations. And so we do try to push a little more money towards that, because as you can see, 42 and 34 is not much difference, but 17,000, 8,000 was. Last year, or last couple of years, we've only spent about, 2021-22 in the height of COVID, we only spent $7,800, $7,800 on 18 people. And so far this year, we have helped 7 people with $3,400. Please note, though, that the last 5 people we assisted with that fund was in the month of November. And the reason why that figure is really important is because when everything was happening and when ARPA was coming around and everybody was coming out of COVID, there was a lot of funds that were flooded in through the federal government, trickling in down to the state. Some of it was, I'm not sure what exactly was anticipated. I think we anticipated something, but weren't quite sure. Everything was a moving target, just like ARPA was. Everything was, what's the state going to do with ARPA? What's the towns going to do with ARPA? So I think everybody in good faith, we did everything we could. Our initial request of $60,000 for the Hope Fund went up to $100,000 for ARPA. But in addition to that, going back to fiscal year 21-22, when we only assisted 18 households with $7,800, one of the reasons why is because we helped over 60 households apply for Unite CT. And Unite CT was a federal, it was a state program based on federal funding that gave a significant amount of money, up to $15,000 for rent and up to $5,000 for utilities. We only helped about 60 households, but about 180 households applied and were awarded Unite CT funds, which equaled over $690,000 to New Milford tenants and landlords. So part of our job is connecting people to resources. Ours aren't always the first, ours are typically the last. So we spend a lot of time doing that. This past year, My Home CT kicked in. My Home CT was the counterpart for Unite CT, helping those folks dealing with mortgage. So they had the longest kind of protection from foreclosure, but then that came, of course, that comes to an end just like others. 46 applications has been recorded, submitted to My Home CT. 30 so far have been funded, and that amount has equaled over $856,000 to homeowners. So, again, and I would say about 20 of those 46, about 15 to 20 of those 46 we've referred over, and about a dozen or so our social workers have actually helped with the process and make sure they didn't fall through the gaps. So that's a lot of our work. And so that's why the amounts we use for Hope Fund fluctuate in terms of our general funding. In addition to that, though, we had our own ARPA funding. Our ARPA funding, we did start off conservative with using the funding. They had a criteria that they had to fit into. Were you financially affected by COVID? Can the paperwork demonstrate that? We are as flexible as we can be in terms of assisting people to show that flexibility in terms of that effect. But with the 100,000 in Hope Fund and 100,000 in Good Samaritan, we anticipated about 100 households that we would assist in helping per fund, knowing some of them would overlap. So we did start off a little bit conservative, and not to say that we denied people, it's just that we just shared other resources. Salvation Army came through with ARPA funding, of course Unite CT was out there. So again, this is what we do. We push it out, and we try not to just throw one thing at once and see what we can do, but also anticipate what we're going to be flooded with. To date, we have spent over $75,000 of the ARPA funding. That's combined with the Good Samaritan and the Hope Fund. On average, each household have received between, say, $1,500 to $2,000. So if they've applied and we can give them $1,000 towards rent or mortgage through the Hope part of it, and then we've looked and say, what other bills do you have? And let's see if we can't reduce some of that stress on you.
I know some of the concern from some of the council members was the amounts that you give out to the clientele. And obviously this is your business. I know some of the other council felt, as I do, to defer that to you. Could you kind of opine on how that works?
Sure. So basically, we did, when we received the funding, and we tried to allocate and said, how far can we go with this? How long is it going to take people to come to us? Because protections were still in place. So we know that it takes time for folks to come out or finally get to a point where they says, I can't do this on my own. So with the $100,000, I thought that, we basically deliberated and felt that 100 households was reasonable. We deal with over 1,000 households a year, typically, before COVID. Right now, we're probably helping anywhere between 25 and 3,000 residents, including family members. All of our numbers are going up. So, because the economy, of course, everyone knows what's going on with inflation. And because you can't necessarily anticipate, but you know from trends that when things are in place and the federal government steps in, it eases up, but it doesn't mean you kind of lose your sight on the ball. You know that those funds are going to end, and that's where you become that last safety net. When we're assessing things, we're just like, what can we help you with federal? What can we help you with state? What can we help you with local? Where's our flexibility? What are the limits? Federal has their own, state has their own, and then we can play from there. What's lovely is that we're able to be flexible. We're able to help a lot more families than most of the federal programs and state programs can. One example is, you've got SNAP, which is the formerly known as food stamps. For the longest time, they're at 175% federal poverty level. That's extremely low. Wasn't until October of 2022, they finally said, hey, people are really hurting out there. Let's raise that to 200% federal poverty level. That is still extremely low. You've got state programs like energy assistance that is always capped out at 60% state median income, which is higher than that 200%. That's about 265, 275 of federal poverty level. Then you've got some of our nonprofit fundings through Operation Fuel, is one of our wonderful organizations in the state of Connecticut that tries to help on top of the state program. And they, a few years ago, they decided we can't do this. We've got to go up to 75% of state median income, knowing that the stretch of that middle income, those folks in our community, for some of our really good friends, have made us know the acronym of ALICE. Those have been our families for years. Without a name, those are the families that we've been working with. The wonderful thing about the ARPA fund is that it's open. We did not have to put a cap on it because again, it's local, so we can play with that. And we've encouraged anybody who can come in to just come in and then just go through the process.
And Ivana, just real quick, I want to thank the council because of the forward thinking when we were looking at dispersing some of the American Relief Funds. So by having this as part of your tool belt, could you give the council kind of a sense of how this has helped residents that may not be able to fit into that box that you talked about?
Oh, it's helped them tremendously because when you're dealing with folks that are above 60%, which is their traditional, that's the word to use, a traditional maximum threshold point of who to help across the state. Most social service agencies will take on to the state 60% state median income, which happens to be the highest that the state will help, and that's only for their energy program. Their Husky is a little bit lower, and their SNAP is really lower, okay? So the state does a lot of this. When you're looking at folks that are above that, 62%, 65%, 75%, 77%, they're the ones that get crunched a lot because they're maybe having the higher child care costs. They are having transportation costs that are higher. They're homeowners more likely than they are renters. And they're getting squeezed. They're getting squeezed at the pump, they're getting squeezed at the grocery stores. And yet when they come out and look for help and we start going down the list, they're overqualified for that, or excuse me, over income for that is what I meant to say. So it allows us the freedom to say your town at least can respond. Your town notices the difference, notices the reality of life, notices what it means to, be sustainable. These are folks that they're moving forward, but their budgets are constrained. That rubber band doesn't stretch us, and it snaps a lot quicker when the car breaks down. It snaps a lot quicker when somebody's ill and out of work. So we're there to sit there and say we're going to help that. So it's helped a lot of people because we've been able to push those limits and create that flexibility in terms of assisting folks that don't otherwise get
we have our
anything.
weekly talks. What's very important, obviously, is the sustainability or to stabilize those in need, because when the net falls, they're the ones that fall the farthest because they don't have the resources.
Right.
So, in your opinion, how much would this American Relief Funding has been able to, really what the government has wanted it, the federal government, is to have the communities come out of COVID and also come out in a stabilized way. For your clients, how has this been able to, has this been, in your opinion, a life changer for them to help avoid what could have been a major calamity for a lot of our residents? If you could talk a little bit about that to the council.
Yeah, for the most part, it can be life-changing, but it provides them time. When the rug is swept from under you, a loss of a job, an illness of a family member, a broken vehicle, unexpected, or something else that's just unexpected, where all of a sudden that turns and you're struck with the fact that I don't have that amount of money to catch up on. Or it's just going to the grocery store and getting hit with realizing my groceries this week just cost me $100 more. So the life-changing part is the time part, because it gives them a chance to then reassess. And that's one of the things that our social workers deal with, is that we do try to sit there and assess. Is there going to be a path to sustainability? Is your path going to be 6 months? It may not. Your path may be a few years. But we'll continue to work with you as best we can to help you through that. Sometimes then it's also the point where maybe it's not sustainable. So maybe the help we give is helping them change direction, helping them come to terms of maybe this isn't, your landlord just raised your rent $400 and your budget doesn't allow it. your landlord's giving you a few months to reassess, maybe looking for another apartment, maybe that's where we can help. And in the meantime, so you can save some money, let's get you into the food bank. You've never done energy assistance. Let's help you indirectly. Let's help you save money by doing these things. So, it definitely can be life changing. Some people lose their job, but their skills are there. Their opportunity for a new job is there, and they're able to then move forward. I was off for 2 months. I've got my new job. You kept me going, because the one thing that we realize, and I don't know if anybody's experienced this or taken the time to realize this, is that when you fall behind on a bill or where you have to start shuffling and borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and for that, even that 1 month, it could take you a long time. If anybody's racked up a credit card bill for a month and then realize it just took them 3 years to pay that off, it really shifts. So it could be that quick to get behind, and then that much longer to move forward. So that's where we're able to sit there and say, we're going to help that, so that time becomes shorter. Or you finally found us. It's about time. So then we can help you.
Any questions for Ivana anymore? Oh, Chris?
Just a few things. First of all, thank you for coming in and spending your personal time with us and giving us an update. And I just want to say that, over the years, you and I have had some personal conversations, and I know I've brought people to you and that, and just want to say I've got the utmost confidence in you and your team. You do an amazing job. I know that every single need that comes to you, you all look at, and you kind of peel back the layers to the onion and try and figure out what you can and what you can't do for these people. And I think you're an amazing resource to this town. I fear that we are in for tougher times. If you look at what the latest data is, you mentioned credit card debt. So the credit card debt is in this country just keeps mounting and mounting. And then I saw a statistic today. California is up, I think, just over 4% unemployment, and they tend to be a leading indicator for the rest of the country, what's coming for the rest of the country. So our unemployment rates are pretty good now, but if that really starts deteriorating in the upcoming year, our community is going to need more than ever. So thank you very much for the update.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to say, obviously, Ivana and I work together a lot, and she and her staff, every single one of them, are fantastic. But I think a lot of people don't really, they think it's a trite saying to say that people are one paycheck away from having a big problem. And you pointed that out, that you only need to be laid off for a couple of months because things don't stop. You still have to eat, you still have to pay the light bill, you still have to put gas in your car if you're going to go look for anything, for another job. And I can safely say that the number of people I have introduced to you and your staff walk away realizing that, A, they're not alone, which really is a calm part of this, which they need. And there is a perception from a lot of people that if you go to see social services, well, you're going to give them all this information. Well, yes, because they're going to help you, as you said. There are other things. But I can tell you, in other towns around us and in big cities, there are really very few social service agencies that handle so much for people. There are no social service agencies in many of our cities. We say Danbury, they have one, I guess, but they use outside agencies, which you and I use to provide people with certain things, but they have you to go to. Mm-hmm. So I think aside from how you've handled the income, and COVID and the ARPA and what you do with the money from Hope and all and the fuel and all that, is wonderful. And I guess you'd have to see how bad it is in a town where there isn't a you and your place to go. And I hope that we never lose our social service help. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
I second what they've said as far as how much I appreciate you and everything you do. I would say a million times over, I am grateful. I want to just drill down on some of the specifics I think I heard you say. So 100,000 went to the Hope Fund. This is from ARPA. 100 went to Hope, 100 went to Good Samaritan, right? So a
Correct.
total of 200,000?
Correct.
So you said 75,000 total has been spent? Or
As
from-
of, yeah, $75,637.
Of both together. So 75,000 out of 200,000 has been spent.
Yeah, it was 82 applications, yeah.
Okay, so my question is, when does that have to be spent?
By
Because
2026.
2026. Okay, so that's a big, long time. I think the question that I was raising in our last meeting was, is there any value to saying that there isn't a ceiling? Meaning if a case came to you and it warranted giving more money, if the funds are there and, we all trust your thing, I'm just saying, why have a cap on it? Because my understanding was that it was capped. But you're saying you've already had that discretion to give anybody any amount from ARPA?
Yeah,
Okay.
the amount of $1,000, which we have jumped over a
Okay.
couple of times, the amount was a way for us to just, again, anticipating about 100
I see.
applications per fund, thinking that's actually rather reasonable, considering we didn't know what the long-term effects were.
And that's something you put on it, or
With
the mayor?
discussion, with this, it was a combined discussion,
Okay.
but based
Not from
on,
the council, but from-
it was basically just me seeking advice, and also just saying, this is what I think we should start with.
Okay.
But again, it's if you think about it, it's about 2,000. Some people that were coming to us in the beginning were just, some people we'd sat there and said, what help do you need? And they were just like, well, I've got a $250 bill here and a $300 bill here, and it didn't add up. So I can't give them more than what the bill indicates. So it's, because it doesn't go to them, it goes to their vendor. Other people, again, if you start looking, if we started something higher, the worry is that sustainability piece. If somebody's $5,000 behind in their rent, and they don't have the necessary plan in place or something that we could just hold on to. And believe me, sometimes it's not a concrete, it's something small. Then our concern is what's going to happen
Right.
next month.
But as we get further away from COVID,
Mm-hmm.
does the tie have to be that it's COVID related? So my question is,
The tie has to be COVID
right,
related
so
as
we're
far as
getting
ARPA's
further
concerned.
away.
Mm-hmm.
My point is, I think, first of all, there is no ceiling. That came from, this council didn't vote on a ceiling for $1,000, right?
It's
So
not a
she
ceiling,
should
it's a
be-
it's a guide.
Hillary, when I spoke with
Yeah.
Ivana, I deferred to Ivana, what do you think? And she's
Okay,
like, to
so this was
serve-
an agreement.
Yeah, serve
So
as many
I guess
people.
that's great, then she has full discretion to give
Absolutely,
more,
absolutely.
and, as we get further away from ARPA and that connection becomes less.
We know
Terrible, it could be
that funds are finite. Funds are finite. But we know that the amount of people that potentially can come to see us are not. So I've been doing this for over 15 years, and I walked into a cap presented to me, much lower than this $1,000 per fund. So 2,000 per family if the bills are presented. And if that family needed more, like, I mentioned Salvation Army gave us funding. So it's not like, if somebody has a little bit more, but it's like, okay, listen, guys, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna pull 1,000 from the Hope Fund. Salvation Army spoke to them, they'll give us 500, this family's getting $1,500 for rent. So it's not like we stop there. In addition, we'll sit there and say, you know what, this family doesn't even realize they qualify for this state program. So by accessing this state program, they're gonna get so much money, then that's another indirect way. Plus, we've encouraged them to go to the food bank. The food bank is, it's based on need of an express need of food insecurity. And again, it's just like, if we can help you at the grocery store, indirect. So when we sit there and we meet and we case review, it's how are we helping them directly? What are our limits? Because everything does have one. Is there a potential of light for a path for sustainability, or do we have to help them redirect something? What we're doing them directly, then what are we doing indirectly? And how many pieces? And sometimes I'm sending 2 or 3 checks from 3 different funders because that money expires too. So it's not a cap. It's not a ceiling that is. I guess if it's a ceiling, it's a glass one, and I have no problem breaking glass ceilings.
Right.
But it's a way for us to just sit there and say, what can we do to put a significant amount of help, the best that we can do, and also, you know, My Home CT. Let's give you $1,000 towards your mortgage, but apply for My Home CT. Let's give you some work. Let's give you something that you can do that's going to help you more. I'm not going to be able to give you up to $50,000, but they can. Unite CT can also. So sometimes we'd sit there and we'd call the landlord and say, we're going to give you this much money. It's going to help you. And then we're going to work with you and with your tenant. And we're going to get you involved with Unite CT. And we've helped landlords, in addition to tenants, go through that process so they could get that $15,000. So it's not a black and white answer, but it was a way for us to just try to sustain it as much as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ivana? Ivana, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Telling
everyone. Thanks for
everybody.
your support. It's
Thank-
truly, truly appreciated.
Thank you. And a couple real quick side notes. The Friends of the New Milford Library having their book sale this Friday and Saturday. Fridays from 11 to 4:30, Saturdays from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. That's up at the Memorial Room in the New Milford Library. All sorts of books, paperbacks, children's books, chapter books. They also have puzzles and games and a large selection of holidays and gifts, gift giving for that as well. And also real quick is on December 1st, the Sip and Stroll from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. right here downtown. The chief and his team on December 2nd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. over at Cole's parking lot is going to be doing Stuff a Cruiser. So definitely, if you have a chance to purchase a toy and give to those in need, it goes to Ivana and the Santa Fund. So thank you, Chief, to you and the men and women of the PD. Also on the 2nd, at Pettibone from 9 a.m. to 2 is the Women's Club's annual Holiday Bazaar. And then for those that can make it, on December 7th at 9 a.m. at the VFW is our Pearl Harbor Observance Ceremony. I know, Paul, you're there, we're there. Those, if you can make it, it's a very good service ceremony to be there. On December 10th at 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and 11 a.m. at Bank Street Theater, they're doing Polar Express, that wonderful movie, and it's great to see it at Bank Street Theater. It's pretty cool. On December 10th from noon to 3 p.m. here in downtown is they're going to do the participating merchants, the annual cookie and cocoa crawl. So you can come down, get some good cookies, some hot cocoa, and make a nice purchase for those that you're going to be purchasing holiday gifts for, and also help our small businesses. On the 10th as well, at the First Congregational Church is the Christmas concert. That's at 4 p.m. On December 15th, I think there's a few seats left, Tom. Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah.
They're doing the Christmas Spectacular, so check the New Milford Park and Rec's website for that. Also on the 16th, at 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., right here at Town Hall and on the green, the crossover, is the Celebrate America 250 Committee is going to present the Boston Tea Party. I heard there's going to be a boat over there. It'd be pretty cool to check that out. Then on the 16th, 6:30 p.m. at the bandstand is our annual Carol Sing. And then right after that at 7 p.m. is going to be our Holiday Parade of Lights. And I heard there's going to be even more vehicles than last year. I heard it's going to be maybe a couple hundred. Which, yeah, it'll be pretty amazing. So that's great. So Katie,
The
that's...
16th is also Wreaths Across America
Yep.
at Center Cemetery and St. Francis. Ceremonies begin at noon, as they do at Arlington. All across the country they do that. And if you're free, and even better if you have a veteran in the
Great
family,
ceremonies.
it's a beautiful ceremony. You can place a wreath or not, just join us, and it's quite lovely, right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so, item 6. I'd like to move to approve the appointment to the Arts Commission of Ryan Rebstock, and that term would be from November 27th of 2021
Yep.
to January 31st, 2026.
Thank you. And Ryan is our new children's librarian at the New Milford Library, and he's very excited to combine children library and the arts. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item 7, Mayor, Economic Development.
Yep, so just a couple real quick items. First is on December 7th. The doors open at 5:30 p.m. We are doing a building resources for success, and have some great panelists. This is at the Max. For those who don't know where that is, that's 94 Railroad Street. And we are going to have Alex Luna. He is with the FDIC. He's coming, and he's the Community Affairs Specialist. Selena Jacobs, she's the Outreach and Marketing Specialist for the Connecticut District Office of the U.S. Business Administration, the SBA. Nelson Marchand, he's the advisor for the Connecticut Small Business Development Center. Will Melke, he's the chapter chair of SCORE, Western Connecticut, and he's also the Northeast Regional Director of SCORE. And for those who don't know what SCORE is, those are retired businessmen that help those that are beginning a business or are in a business, help them, mentor them, give them good advice and opportunities. You also have Ole Karp. He's the chairman of the New Milford Economic Development Corporation. And for those who don't know, Ole, for many, many years, he was the Economic Development Director, worked for a few of the COGs as well, and actually was part of the Hartford Airport up there for that upgrade many years ago. And Bob Railing, who's the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. And it's a great opportunity for those in business to come in and learn about funding opportunities, opportunities for mentorship, and also opportunities to learn more about small business opportunities through the federal government and through the state government. So if you get a chance, please come down, especially if you're a small business owner. Again, doors open at 5:30. The program starts at 6, runs till 7:30. There are refreshments that are going to be provided. And right now, currently, our unemployment rate in New Milford still is holding steady at 2.9%. There has been some upticks in some, as we said, federally on a national level, but so far we are still at 2.9% here in New Milford. And that's all I have for economic development for this time.
And 7B, Mayor, the update on East Street School.
Yep. So I know Ms. Ram had asked for this to be put on the agenda. So first, I'd like to say I met with the Historic Preservation Trust. They came to look at East Street School. We actually have seen it twice with their circuit rider, and what their circuit rider is, he's one that could come and help our town seeing about the availability for funding. And one of the things is we are called a certified community, and because we're a certified community, we can apply for a grant that will help us in define what the remediation costs will be on a building such as this. And this will be needed whether it's a developer, the town itself, or a nonprofit. So this is something that does need to get done. So I've directed Tammy Reardon. We're going to be applying for that grant as well. I'm also going to be asking the council that in mid-January that we hold our first public public hearing concerning East Street School, and what the public, because it is a town building, what they would like to see done with that building. By that time, we'll have more definitive costs when it comes to the remediation costs. We do know from Dean Petroselli, his cost to cure, which is to bring it up to code, was $12.1 million, less, not including the remediation costs, which could be substantial. The goal would be, if we can hit these timelines, is to put this on the budget referendum as a question. And we'll be getting more into that. And I know, Councilman Ram, you had some questions, so I'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you for that update. It sounds like, you've got a forward-thinking mindset on it, which is great. I kind of wish this conversation had happened at our last meeting, because that was sort of when the issues at hand were rising, and there were people here to speak to it, and the conversation was current. Right now, it feels, the people in this room might not, be fully cognizant of these issues, so it's a bit, late, but I still feel like it's a really important thing to just state clearly, my opinion, and there were several people that I think agreed with me over here, that the issue with East Street and the way that it was being portrayed was not factual, and that there needed to be a larger conversation, a more contextualized conversation about it. And what I think is that East Street building, the Lillis building, is owned by the town, and ultimately the responsibility of maintaining our town buildings is on the town. So I think that's a fact, and I think that there's no confusion about how long that building has been in that state. There are 2 reports that I know of offhand that have come to light in this whole sort of furor debate about the building. One of which was the facilities assessment on September 7th, 2017, done by KG&D Architects. And I quote, so this is in 2017. The existing boiler is approximately 23 years old. It's in poor condition. The condensate receiver tank appears to be the original to the building, as in poor condition. And then we all know about the adaptive reuse study done by the Peary Associates in 2019 that was never released. And that weighed in public opinion about what to do with the building. So we still have questions on why that wasn't released. Again, this feels like I'm going backwards because, you're forward thinking, but I think that needed to be stated, because the narrative that was being spun in your slideshow presentation 3 meetings or 4 meetings ago was that the Board of Ed was to blame for this disrepair of this building. And I think that needed to be, countered. And the reason that they didn't get out of that building in those last 3 months was because they were waiting on the arrangement with Camilla's Cupboard, right? So that there was a tenant in the building, and they couldn't just vacate the building, and they were awaiting some, there's email thread on this. So I think it was fair to show the other side and, have the town say, this is a town responsibility, and go forward. And it sounds like that's what you're doing, so I'm pleased.
Thank you, Hillary. First of all, thank you for bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quickly, I did speak during that time with now Chairman Fallenbach and the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
We both sat down, all 3 of us, had very frank discussions. And within those discussions, we all agreed that we are going to move forward in a unified effort for all of our buildings. And Hillary, I'm one person of the boards, but I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think they are town facility buildings, and the town's responsible for them. That's a conversation I think we'll have as we go through these joint meetings, but I do 100% agree with you on that. But I think as you're talking about, I think it's something we need to move forward on together. We can't do any of this stuff if we're operating in silos. So I appreciate the conversation that we had with Dr. Parlato and Chairman Fallenbach, and I think there's going to be a lot of positive results that will be coming out of our future meetings.
And as you've mentioned them, can I ask them to come up and speak to that? Or
Absolutely.
do you feel,
If they so choose, if they want to.
is there anything you need to answer to that? I would love to ask you if your conversations, if you're having the same takeaway from those conversations that the mayor just interrupted.
Well, I took over the chairmanship on around August 17th. We began our conversations in the last month or so on where we're going with our buildings and East School in particular. I think it's extremely fair to say that we've had frank and interesting dialogue over where we've been, how we're moving forward, and what we need to do. There's a lot of history with East Street School. There's a lot of history with a lot of these buildings in this town. That's what makes this town fantastic. I think the board is fully committed to trying to find a way that these conversations stay in the forefront, not only with East Street, with all the plans going in the town, whether it be central office, all these things that 10 years from now we're not saying, why did this happen and why wasn't this documented and who did what to whom. We have to do a better job. The residents depend on us to do it. It's that simple. And we're not going to be here. You know, some of us are not going to be here. So is it my takeaway? I think it's fair to say that we have to get this taken care of. We have to look at the best way and the most accurate and fair way of financial accountability. And we recognize that. I will also say that if you're asking me on East Street School in particular, there's a lot of conversation about what happened when and to whom kind of thing. But I think we're committed to making those decisions, and I hope we do. And I hope we do it together, because we're not going to get anywhere doing it like this. It's just not going to work, and there's been enough of that. And I think that we need to move forward on that piece. And it has to be transparent. It has to be, because there's just, doesn't work otherwise. And we have a lot of volunteers on all sides of the table who work very, very hard. Very hard.
Thank you.
And if I'm missing anything, you correct me. We've had several meetings.
Yes, we have.
And then I think I've pretty much captured it.
And towards that end, is there anything you can update us on as far as how you will be finding the Board of Ed's new location? Is that something you guys are going to talk about behind closed doors? Are you going to bring it to the council? Is it a constant,
As far as
the plan for where the Board of Ed administers?
So we've had these discussions.
Mm-hmm.
There's been conjecture. I'm kind of waiting for where they're thinking that they want to go, because it's going to be their building. And then we'll bring that back to the council, obviously, to the Board of Finance, and also to the Board of Education.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make sure that, you know, Dr. Parlato and, you know, Matt Cunningham, that they're, you know, putting together what they feel is something that's going to last for them for the next 50 years. So that's what we're kind of waiting on.
Can I just make a correction on that? And then, go ahead. I was going to say, I appreciate that. You know, Hillary, we may have some discussions, but usually everything is going to come to the council, the board, and we don't, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, I'm not a big closed door fan. Everything comes to our subcommittee, everything goes through our board, every single thing comes to one subcommittee or another and to this board. I believe on your end as well. It has to be that way. Otherwise, there's too much whispering over, you know, and the real challenge here is making sure that the public knows the conversations in the plan. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. We've seen it. So we do, while we can have some of our feelings a little bit, you know, hey, blah, 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 but all business comes before the boards, 100%. I stand behind that, 100% on the Board of Education, period.
Dr. Carlisle?
Mr. Cunningham and I just talked about process. We're prepared to, in December, go to the facilities subcommittee of the board to explain the programming study that we've had to look at square footage for a new location. So that's just talking about generalities, not a specific location, but in terms of what we need in terms of space. Then we'll email it to the mayor and Mr. Healy, and then we'll go from there.
And that's the beginning stage, because obviously there's a lot of components there. But I appreciate you bringing that up, because I do think that central office, if you will, played a part in, you know, some of the where we are building-wise, and I desperately want to keep that a focus for what we're doing with our staff. It's important.
Absolutely.
So we'll be bringing you that information.
Great.
And of course, that's just the beginning.
Absolutely. Anybody have anything else?
For the council's clarification, I think this might have come up in the past. I just want everyone to understand. So it's certainly true that the town does own the Eastwood School property, but just one detail we need to keep in mind, and I know the board's aware of this already, but any work we do inside the building can only happen under state statute through collaboration with the Board of Ed. So it's a multi-pronged process, and I'm sure we're all aware of that, but when we're talking about responsibility for the building, I just want us all to keep that detail in mind, that legally there's a statutory procedure. I know the board will work with us certainly on that, but I just want to make that clear for the record.
That is correct,
Thanks,
similar
Jim.
to the roof. You know, when we have that work done, we have to sign off, and there has to be that. So you're absolutely right. The other piece of that, respectfully, is that those conversations are, while you have the statutory reference and the maintenance obligation and the stewards of the building, you also have the larger piece, which is the plan for the town in general, what happens to the building and how they work together.
Absolutely.
That is not defined in statute. It is clearly, as you mentioned, defined on who has what responsibility. But without that frosting on the cake, it just doesn't work. So, but thank you. We are aware of that.
Any other questions for?
One last comment.
Sure.
and this is not to end on a totally negative note, but I would be remiss if I didn't. I know, I'm sorry, it's my last meeting, I will be gone. But the letter that you sent to the Board of Education, I just wanted to state publicly that I think it was wrong. As a town council member, I was not aware of that letter. I find it just wrong is the word I will, to send a letter to members of a board, volunteer members of a board, in sort of with a threatening intention. And we were going to talk about the letter last time. I just am stating my own opinion for the record, and I have to put it out there. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary Jane, sorry.
So, yes, I would just like to echo what Hillary just said about the letter, that I felt it was incredibly wrong and disrespectful, and I hope we never see that happen again. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Paul? What's that?
The letter that was sent, it's supposed to be threatening people.
You want me to read it?
Sure. Yeah.
We can have a record.
I think I might have it.
And there's some factual inaccuracies in the letter, so we're going to read the letter, that we're going to have to talk about the letter. Okay.
Let me find the letter. Yeah, I know. It's probably on Facebook. You're probably right. Steph, can you pull it up? Thank you. Okay. All right. Here's my glasses.
Can you turn it sideways?
Can you make it go?
Let's see. There.
Okay. All right, this was a letter addressed to Zachary Sherman.
Sherman.
Thank you.
Pullman and Conley.
Pullman Conley, Hartford, Connecticut. This was from Randy DeBella. Dear Zach, As I am sure you've been made aware, the New Milford Board of Education transferred possession and control of the Catherine Little School Administration Building, 50 East Street, to the town of New Milford on July 1st, 2023. The town engaged Fuss & O'Neill Consulting Engineers and Scientists, parentheses F&O, to conduct an indoor air quality assessment, parentheses AQA, of the building upon delivery. The field work for this assessment commenced on July 3rd, 2023, and it was completed on July 14th. I was told that the date on which this transfer was agreed was March 23rd, but the date of the surrender was at the termination of the fiscal year, July 1, and that virtually no maintenance expenditure was made by the BOE on the building. Not surprisingly, the AQA revealed a building in need of maintenance and repair, with serious mold contamination in critical areas, including the area housing a nonprofit community pantry, at and from which Open Produced was kept and distributed. And the health director recommended that face masks be worn by all who enter. Never attended to by the Board of Education. This has also resulted in floors buckling and saturated ceiling tiles. Although the BOE was furnished a copy, I send you a copy of the F&O report if you want it. Mayor Bass was also told the administration was acutely aware of this situation and moved the special ed offices out of this building some months ago due to mold contamination. Can you go to the next?
I think so. Let's see.
Page?
Short. Next page is short. Oops. See what you can do there.
I can't. Hey, how do you make that bigger?
That's a good question.
For
I
our
thought we just
guys'
did it.
eyes like mine.
I thought we just did it.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. This is page 2. Accordingly, the town intends to conduct the necessary remediation and repairs. It will ultimately seek payment of the Board of Ed capital account. The mayor also asked I inform you as a courtesy, they also will explore whether and what if any other recourse might exist. Finally, he intends to hold responsible any individual who is derelict in their duty and violative of their oath of office should a liability claim be made against the town for bodily injury or disease processed that is excluded under the town's liability insurance policy. Best regards, Randy DeBella, Kramer and Anderson, LLP.
All right. So it's all ready.
Okay. So it's read.
Okay.
We're all,
All right.
we've spoken with the superintendent, we've spoken with the new Board of Ed chair, and we're gonna be moving forward.
There's a healthy conversation going on.
Absolutely.
Let's move on.
It was also, by the way, put in the minutes for the last meeting.
I
when it was-
think
It was also put in the minutes.
Let's move on.
I think somebody from the board wants to.
I called the
speak.
question.
Somebody want to speak?
I'm sorry, I would like someone to speak to the letter that was just read from,
Didn't they see
I would
the
like to
letter before?
invite,
You've all seen the letter?
we're inviting Janet up to speak.
Who wants to speak?
Attorney DeBella?
Did
just
you
read
want to
the letter.
speak
Would
or
you
no?
like to
Were you
speak?
raising your hand or no? Over
What's
there.
this?
One that wants to keep continuing
Where's
this.
the threat?
I'm not. I thought somebody wanted
Okay,
to
let's
speak.
move
I
on.
mean,
Let's move
whatever
on.
happened is not gonna change anything right now. You've wasted enough time tonight and in
Excuse
the
me.
last 2 years.
Excuse me,
with
there are
the
some
constant-
inaccuracies in the letter. I would like to
Okay.
know if the board
What's inaccurate
chair
about
or
that, Hillary?
the
Please
superintendent
explain.
would like to speak to it. That's it.
It
I'm
doesn't look
asking
like
them-
anybody does. Their heads are down and they don't need to be coerced into this.
move on.
Can we move on?
Let's move on.
It'll be a pleasure the next meeting where this won't continue.
Let's move on.
Can we go to C, please?
There's a conversation going on there. They were in a good
Please,
spot. Let's move
enough.
on.
Enough is enough.
So, excuse me, I would just like to ask, what are you afraid of?
Nobody's
What
afraid
are
of
you-
anything, Mary Jane. We're just sick and tired of the circus that has been performed here. There's no threat in this letter.
Circus.
Unfortunately, somebody's feelings were hurt, maybe yours, maybe Hillary's, but let's move on, please. This is not a,
You know, it's great to move on, but you also have to acknowledge when mistakes have been made, and maybe a bad decision was made to send that letter.
You heard the
So
letter.
That's your opinion.
That's the other part of the conversation, Tom. And I don't know why you're afraid to hear it, but that is the reality.
Mary Jane, you've known me in this room for 14 years. I'm not afraid of anything or anyone or any conversation. This is not a
Well,
thing,
so why
there's
are-
nothing about
so why-
fear here.
so-
This is about hypocrisy again,
Why-
that we're bringing
why
up
are
a
you-
subject that you want to continue to run over and over. Now, if this was right before the election, that would probably be something that would help you, but it's not. Can we please move on?
I think
I'm
we're,
done. I'm done.
Point of order. You continue to overtalk.
Please speak.
And that-
Tammy, you need to speak. Anybody there? I am not stopping you from speaking. I'm trying to stop the circus. Please, say whatever you'd like. I'm totally respecting you.
I'm a volunteer in this town. I've served on the Board of Education for 8 years.
So you felt,
I felt very threatened
what would be the option?
and very intimidated by that letter. I also thought, excuse me, I also thought that, saying that you might take the Board of Education's capital in order to pay for a building that is owned by the town is egregious and would completely mess with what our plans are to make sure that their students have what they need. So, yeah, I felt very bullied by that letter, and I am still extremely upset about it as a volunteer who has dedicated a lot of time to this town and to these schools. That's me.
I'm going to try and perhaps capture this the best I can as being the spokesman for the Board of Education, which is difficult. There's a variety of opinions and feelings on the Board of Education. You're hearing some of it. I'll give you the fact. With regards to that letter, the board feels there's some inaccuracies in that letter. However, that has been received. We've had some discussion over some of the concerns and where we're going. And I can assure you that it did not go over well with some board members. However, we're elected officials. We have a responsibility to drill down how we're going to do the best we can transparently for this town. This building has been talked about for 20 years. And here we are, perhaps your last night on town council, and we're going through this again. There's a tremendous amount of reports and information. And they all come to the conclusion that that building has not had the planning, if you will, that perhaps would have been more of a benefit. So I am not going to get into who said what to whom. We all have our feelings about that. But your question about if some board members felt, they did. They just did.
So what is the response of the board members to the mayor? What is the inaccuracy and the threat?
The response.
What is the response? The physical response, the letter back responding, Mr. Mayor, you were wrong in this and this case. Where is that?
There has been no letter back to the mayor.
Chris?
And I wish you wouldn't be so dismissive. I was just trying to answer the question.
Yeah, but you were not part of it. Chris?
You're very dismissive. You're very rude.
Wow.
I would like to.
Because I heard too much of it.
You're very rude.
I would like to say one thing about the letter. And you can debate facts in it. Here's what I believe is not debatable. The Board of Ed had control of that building until late June, early July. As soon as humanly possible, and while the Board of Ed had control of the building, they allowed a nonprofit to exist in there and do work in there. As soon as humanly possible, when the town received the building, we had an air assessment quality, which showed it was unhealthy to stay in there, right? That's undisputable. So I think the mayor is trying to protect the town from liabilities, stating,
People of the town.
hang on, stating that if a liability claim comes against the town and members of the Board of Ed knowingly allowed an unhealthy situation to exist, they could be held liable. And the town's insurance doesn't cover that claim. So those three things would have to happen. So, I mean, if people's feelings got hurt, I mean, but I think the mayor was trying to protect the town against liability. That's how I look at it.
And
I
stating
think,
the fact.
lastly, to just close this loop, as I said before, I met with the superintendent, I met with the now Board of Ed chairman, and we agreed. I also met in executive session with the Board of Ed to hear their concerns.
Thank you, I was trying to
And-
answer that, but I wasn't recording.
And my thing was moving forward, because that's what we're going to do, move forward. We have our own thoughts on where we should be. But to me, on the whole, the best is to move forward. And that's the frank conversations that I've had with the superintendent and with the chair, the board chair. Once we had those meetings, everything totally stopped, because we agreed to move forward together. Because it won't work if we don't. There's too much at stake, too many things going on. Whether it's our children, whether it's buildings, whether it's the economy, you can't do it separate. There's no way. So,
That's fair. And with regards to hurt feeling, it's not because people have hurt feelings. It's because, with all due respect, it's the manner in which it was done. There was no notice. It was opening an email, and that was it.
But now we're on a path forward together.
You are 100%.
Right?
Yes.
Right, and we've talked about it, and that's what's going to be happening, and that's the way we'll go. So I think it's, to hash it again is just not productive.
I would agree.
Thank you.
any other comments?
Okay, item
thank you.
7C.
And thank you, Wendy, thank you, Dr. Parlato, and the board. Thank you for coming tonight.
That's why we're here, because when we saw it, we don't know which direction this is gonna go.
I didn't
But-
know either,
but
Wendy,
in
till
all
about
honesty,
5 minutes ago.
That's why we're here, so.
Yep.
And thank you. Thank you all.
Thank
Tom, Timmy, Janet. Item 7C, this is a discussion about the NIP bottle allocation of funding by the state and the process of roadside cleanup.
So this was money that's been given and parceled out per municipality, right? And the state of Connecticut distributes those funds, and they do it every year, and it's based on how many NIPs are sold in each town, right? So New Milford, our allocation so far as to date, I believe, Greg's around 72,000 is around what I think that it is.
Right.
And we did expend some of the funds that we agreed to, a portion of it, as to allowing people to, instead of throwing their things on the ground in town right-of-ways, we would use our recycling center that's managed by 3 veterans to pick up those unwanted things that were being littered everywhere. And I know we've had some success with that. But as we all know, the main reason for the NIP money is to clean up the environment with the NIPs, the sides of the road that's everywhere. And as Jack can tell you, our DPW department is flat out with all the water that we've gotten, road work, everything else. So I said, you know what? We've got a great recycling team. So I went over to Bob and I said, hey, Bob, what do you guys think? Could you guys actually go to the right-of-ways? Could you guys actually do that on behalf of the town? Bob said, absolutely. So we did a beta test, and I'll have Bob come up and talk about it in a few minutes. But we did a beta test on them actually doing what the NIP money is for. So they went to the roadside and they picked up NIP bottles and garbage. And here's the result so far. They've done 35 days of this endeavor. They've done 71.19 miles of road. They've collected 3,736 NIP bottles, which equivocates to 52 per mile. Garbage here was a big one.
Yep.
They've collected 5,101 pounds of garbage, which equivocates to 2.55 tons of garbage on the roadways.
Tons.
Tons. 2.55 tons of garbage. And I gotta say this, Bob, you gave me this great analogy. You guys, your 3 employees that have been out there doing it, have done 355,950 steps. That's pretty amazing.
So it's helpful.
So Bob, if you could come up and kind of talk a little bit about what you've seen as far as the program.
I could have a minute, we do have a visual. And a couple of things.
Okay.
And did we go? And when did we move to 10 cents?
Please, I was arguing for this last year. Pick up the garbage with those funds. That's the point. Oh my gosh.
Since the numbers that I gave to the mayor, we've done a few more roads. So our total of NIPS is 4,580. You'd like to know what that looks like?
4,000.
Let's give you a little bit of this is 4,580 NIPS.
Wow. Wow.
I can smell the alcohol coming up from the cans.
And there are 2 full ones up there if anyone would like to dig through.
Do I have to dig at the bottom to get
After
them?
this meeting, I'll pick one.
I'm not telling you where they are. Yeah, we decided, obviously, when we went out, it surprised the heck out of us. What was seeing, I'm sure, for the amount of NIPS. We're very happy to do it. As veterans, we know that police call is, you don't have a drill sergeant behind you. It's a lot easier to do it when you're on your own.
Yeah.
But we average about 4.5 hours a week. I'm sorry, a day, to go out there, and we try to go to roads that are close to liquor stores, because that's where you tend to see them. And you know, like Crossroad is a big one because there's a liquor store right on Route 7. It's all the pass-through roads is where you're really looking at it. When you get into developments, which we've done, you're not seeing anywhere near the amount of trash or NIPS. For instance, the residents of Long Mountain, the upper half, they do a cleanup of themselves every April. We walk the entire road, which is about 5.5 miles long. All our numbers are from Public Works, from the plow routes, all our mileage that we do. The mileage that we've done, you have to double that because there's 2 sides to every road. We haven't found a one-side road yet. But we did 5.5, actually Lynn, who's my manager, we did it on a Sunday. We did 5.5 miles. And we really didn't start hitting anything until we got down to where the S-curves are. Once we got there, from there on down, it was just, we're averaging about 27 NIPS per mile and 36.5 pounds of garbage per mile.
Little Bear and Big Bear.
Yeah, Little Bear's
Yeah. Always.
We spent,
We had the numbers for Little Bear, Big Bear, and Bear Hill on that.
yeah, we spent 7.5 hours doing those 3 roads.
Yeah.
Little Bear had 109 nip bottles. Big Bear had 104 nip bottles. Bear Hill had 113, which that surprised me a little bit. Little Bear and Big Bear, there's a liquor store right in the middle of the 2 of them. Coming up the hill. So.
Yeah, because when I'm walking everywhere.
It is amazing if you're driving
over the skateboard twice
and you're
almost
looking,
killed
you
myself.
honestly do not.
I can't believe it.
See what's there. By walking in what we're doing, and putting all the bags of garbage. A lot of the garbage itself is from bottles. That's why we have the weights that we have. We're finding everything from pint bottles up to, I guess, call them handles. Yeah. The big gallon bottles.
Big ones, yeah.
I found 4 of them the other day at the bottom of Candlewood Mountain, right together. It's like one person is like, "This is my spot."
At the bottom of Candlewood Mountain?
Yeah, we did stretch from Bullymuck down to Route 37.
Your emergency storage there, Katie?
No, but I think I know where they belong.
But in all seriousness, this is so great. mean, I think the nature of the law was that those would all be in the river. I mean, do you know what I mean? So the nature of the law was to make this happen, and I'm so grateful, and I think it's so exciting to see it tangibly.
This
and
is
I
something we
thank
jumped
you.
at. I mean, this is, to us, was a thing. We did, the one question I have is like Route 7. If you go from basically the Boardman Bridge up to Galersville and look at Route 7 at that point, it's a total mess. I looked into it, and we're going to apply to the state to be able to, as my company, to volunteer to do that stretch of road, because it's just they're not going to do it. I mean, they're just as overwhelmed as our public works with the stuff that those guys have to do. So that's something we don't mind doing.
This is a question, Mayor, for Bob and for the chief. In some towns, kids who get in trouble, or maybe adults who get in trouble or have to do community service, and you see them in their high visibility vests with the stick picking up the garbage. The state does it along some state roads. Would that be something that you could see happening here? What do you say? What do you say, Bob?
I don't see it just because of the manpower issue. Obviously, we'd have to provide supervision for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, then never mind. But Bob has something to say.
The reason, when the mayor and I were speaking, the reason we decided to do this beta program was, one, is I went to my insurance company to make sure that this is a covered feature for my people for workers' compensation and stuff. It is. The only restriction is they have to be over the age of 18. So what our goal is in the spring, because we're going now. Once it starts snowing, obviously we're going to be done for the winter. When the spring comes around and into summer, our goal is to hire some high school or college kids who are over the age of 18, pair them up, because all four of my people are trained on how to do it, how we want it done, where to do it, and we know which roads are safe to put younger people on who haven't done this.
Could it be neighborhood groups? Because there are certain neighborhoods in New Milford that have, there's a spring day that's...
Spring cleanup day.
Yeah, right. So let's say that in not where I live, too far apart, but let's just say in a Big Bear, Little Bear, all the bears, and the neighborhood wanted to get together, and you tell them and teach them the right way to do this so that you can use what's picked up, then would you think that would be something that could be done? So that the town residents are involved in realizing what's getting picked up.
We'll continue to do those pickups that the cadets have done the last 2 years
there you
now.
go, the cadets.
So we
that's
can
good.
do that. The issue is, once you do that, so you'll clean up, say, Aspetuck Ridge, just make
Right.
that up.
Yeah.
2 days later,
it's messed up, yeah.
they're throwing them back in there again.
Down
So-
the road.
There's one road one road in this town we've picked up about 1.5 tons of garbage and close to 1,000 nips.
Where?
I'd rather not put it out to everybody. I don't want 2,000 to be there.
But, so can I just ask you, one of the things when you guys took over, it's just been great, we talked about how we used to see mattresses on the side of the road and pieces of furniture. So in this process, how many mattresses did you pick up?
I've picked up 4 mattresses so far.
Not
2 of
bad.
them were on that road I'm talking about. We found maybe 6 tires.
Oh, not bad.
Some small appliances, like a couple vacuum cleaners. It's nothing crazy. It's just...
That's good.
you
Well,
know,
then I guess our process at recycling's doing a good job.
It seems to be working well, and I am in contact with Mike. If he's got a road that he knows is, he gave me the first roads to do, obviously, from his experience knowing it. So we're in touch with, hey, this road, or if I run across something that I can't pick up or something, Mike will send his guys out to grab it for us. And obviously it still comes to us, but.
Yeah, I would just add what Katie was saying. I think just in general with the recycling center, you're so well organized, you're so economical. It really makes it easy for our citizens to do the right thing with their old appliances or what have you. I've used you a few times.
I think our
It's always been a great
hours
experience.
too are probably the key. We're
Yep.
open, Saturday and Sunday, which
Right.
are very, very good days for a lot of people to get out and do that. So We do our best. I mean, we're trying.
Do a great job.
But,
Do you have any idea, Bob, how many nips are, I don't want to say not being thrown on the road, but you know, there's next to one of our bigger liquor stores, there's a place where you can throw it in the bin there. You don't get the money back, right? But they don't.
Right.
I don't, but, do you have any idea how it's impacted that, or if that amount has gone down? Because we didn't do this before. This was your beta test.
Well, I mean, if you looked, it was about $72,000. That amounts to a little bit over 1 million nips. Okay, we found 4,500, and we go in as far as about 8 feet.
No, that's
Basically, from the road,
That's
we take 2 steps in, and then we've got a 3-foot
yeah, right.
clip. So we're in about 8 feet. Parts that are steeper or whatever we can't do.
Yeah, of course.
Parts that are like on Candlewood Mountain Road, for instance. Once you get down a small little slope, it flattens out. So we're able to get in there and go a little bit farther and spend a little bit more time. To your point about the river on Erickson Road, right by the bridge there, a lot was washed down, and then when the water level went down, it just stayed right there. We spent close to an hour and a half picking up all the stuff there because we were able to get in there when it was dry. With all the rain that we had this year, it's just, I mean, there's still some areas that are still wet, but in some roads we have to do, you know, every couple of weeks we go back down there and trying to keep it
Amazing.
as clean as we can.
Lastly, I just say, please be safe while you're doing this.
Right.
Yeah, no, we have our own little system of, you know, if someone hears a car coming, it's your side or my side or whatever, and we just I step off the road. I mean, I can't jump anymore, so I have to step off quickly. But
You keep all those steps going, you're going to be jumping everywhere.
keeps my doctor happy. That's what I tell people.
Any other questions for Bob?
Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Great effort.
Make it easier next time, I'll put it 3 feet off the other side.
So we're going to remove this.
What's that?
Just have it to make a possible action.
I would just state if we could just set a motion just for
Right.
notification that the council feels this is appropriate use of the
Right.
funding, is to do this through 3 veterans.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the process that 3 veterans are doing in cleaning up the NIPS and taking care of them. It's a good use of the funds, and we continue for the future.
Second.
Any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody.
Item number 8, Public Works, so we're going to get a KSE engineering overview for Grove and Hine Hill, and Grove and Fordyce.
Good. Oh, hello again. First, there are a lot of very nice people who spoke at the beginning of this about the Public Works, and they mentioned me, but they didn't. There was a team who worked on the plan that we talked to the residents of Bucks Rock Road about. I just want to make sure I mentioned Mike Boucher, Chris Juergens, Chuck Ballard, and Jason Hyde. They all put together the information, and they all met with the residents on that road. It wasn't just me, it was them doing the work. So I want to make sure that we get that on the record, that they did the work on that. Okay, that being said, for several years, we've gotten several comments about the intersections of Grove Street, Fordyce Road, and Hine Hill Road, 2 different intersections. And I think it's probably half a year, about 6 months to 9 months ago, it crescendoed, and the mayor, we were in our Friday morning meetings, he said, you know, what can we do? And, you know, we had grand designs of thinking about putting a couple roundabouts, you know, go with the current technology and looking at these things, but you need engineering and studies to do that. So we commissioned a study. KSE Engineering submitted their qualifications. We selected them to do the study. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview. We've talked about this with the mayor. You know, we want to make sure that people are aware what the recommendations are, and see if this is something that the town wants to go forward with. I mean, you know, every plan that comes together has good and bad points to it. So I'd like to just go through this briefly. So We had a virtual meeting with the residents at the end of August, and we asked, we get a lot of emails about this, and we asked the residents, what are your thoughts? And we had many people submit email to us or got on this call and gave us their thoughts. And at the end of the day, we summed it up into, 3 bullet points. The first is there's a widespread concern about the difficulty turning into Grove Street from Hine Hill Road and Fordyce Road. I mean, if you've come down either one, it's difficult to see. There's odd angles there. There's also New Milford seems to have a lot of roads that don't come in at 90 degrees, and then they put a house right there. So they really want to make it a challenge. I'm sorry,
Jack, just a question. So on that first bullet point, would it be safe to say the majority of the difficulty is making a left turn onto Grove Street from both of those? Or is it both left and right?
No, I would say more, particularly on Fordyce. Mike gets calls all the time about taking down, there's some vegetation there. It's on a person's property. We can't do that. So at Fordyce, I think the sightline going to the right, looking north, is very, very good. Looking to the south, it's very difficult. I don't know about you, but you're trying to turn more than 90 degrees in that direction and look back.
You go downhill too.
Yeah. We want to make sure it's really good for you. It's like when I come in a paper mill every day, so that's exciting too. There's a concern about the speed on Grove Street and Lower Grove Street, Fordyce Road and Hine Hill Road. We have put out in the last year or so, Mike has put out your speed is. And Mike, what's the highest speed we found on Grove Street?
The highest category is between 95 and 100 miles an hour, and we've hit it 4 times in the last 6 months. Wow. And that's in front of the club.
No, that's on Grove Street, right?
On Grove Street, in front of the club. We've hit 4 cars going 95 to 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. So they're going a little faster than the speed. There was a lot of opinions expressed that some type of traffic control device, traffic signals were needed at those intersections to address the safety challenges. And again, we've gone out and met with the residents. We've talked to them about this. Crash data, and this is from 2020 to 2022. At the intersection of Fordyce Road and Grove Street, there are a total of 18 crashes. 56% of the crashes led to an injury. 44% of the crashes led to property damage only. 78% of the crashes were in angles, and 22% of the crashes were rear end. And it's important to notice that the angle crashes are directly related to the limited sight. So that's when you're hitting somebody at an angle. And during that same time frame on Hine Hill Road and Grove Street, there were 70 crashes. 40% of the crashes led to injury. 60% of the crashes led to property damage. 6% of the crashes were at angles, and 44% were rear end type. Again, the same comment about the angles, the crashes being on an angle. So that's indicative of people having difficulty seeing each way. Their report recommended the following: removing existing stop signs in those areas. We looked at putting stop signs there. We didn't think that was a good way of going. Installing traffic signals. When we say install traffic signals, we're looking at what they call now smart signals. So if you were to put one at each of those intersections, it would be green for Grove Street almost all the time. It would, by visual cameras, it would then pick up any type of traffic coming down Fordyce or Hine Hill, and then at that point, through its computer, through its programming and algorithms, it would change the light to switch and then go right back to green. Install new stop bars on Grove Street and Fordyce. Install signal ahead signs on Grove Street. Install speed tables per MUTCD guidelines on Fordyce Road, and clear and trim vegetation as we can.
So Jack, you mentioned before some of that vegetation is on private property.
Particularly at Fordyce. If you come down Fordyce and you look to the left, up, going south on Grove Street, there's a home there and there's vegetation there. It's their gardens and things, so it's, it's not on town property either. It's not like it's on our town right of way. If it's town right of way, we can go in and work with it. This is actually on their personal property.
So can we, that's not something we can clear though,
No.
right? You're just talking about strictly on town property?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will tell you, while some of these I agree with, there's at least one there I don't agree with right away. I do try to steer clear of putting speed tables for maintenance purposes.
What is a
safety.
speed table?
It's a hump, but it's a little bit longer than a hump.
Oh, it's like a speed bump?
Yeah, it's like what you have on Main Street.
Right.
Like you see, like you see up at Canterbury School.
Yeah.
No, they're recommending on Fordyce Road. Yeah, I'm not necessarily, I'm not at this point in tune with that. And this is, this is what they're talking about doing. You can see where they're recommending the traffic lights. Again, they're smart lights and installing speed, where they put the stop bars, trying to control the traffic. And you can see on Fordyce, it's a very severe. If you've probably all driven down there, it's a very severe turn.
So some of the things as the council we need to be cognizant of is the recommendation of traffic lights. That will be a cost borne by the town of New Milford.
Yeah.
About the tune of what, about 600,000?
Yeah, I have that the last slide, Mayor.
It's a town road, that lights.
Yeah, it's a town road.
Jack, was there any suggestion of a circle?
Roundabout?
There's not, that would have been the preferred.
At Fordyce, it makes more sense.
It's just that the amount of space.
Not enough space?
We just don't have enough space
Because of the
to do
houses
it.
and everything? Yeah.
Amount of right of way.
Too bad.
We tried to get creative that way, and we haven't got to be that smart yet. So. And then a Hine Hill, again, move the stop sign, install overhead lights, move the install stop bars, put a signal ahead, put a speed table on Hine Hill Road. Again, as coming downhill, I'm very concerned about that. It's a drainage maintenance problem. I think if you put the lights there, I think that will, and then clear and trim vegetation. There, we may have a little bit more on Grove Street that we can do, but again, looking to the left, there is a home right there. And you can see there's the home and their property and their driveway too. This is what they're proposing. On Grove Street, Lower Grove Street, they looked at putting in a speed table. Again, I'm not sure at this point that we want to go to that point. And here's their estimate of cost. Understand, and we've had quite a conversation with the mayor about this. Up to this point, the town of Milford does not own a traffic light, and there's quite a cost incurred here. Right at this point, this preliminary cost estimate came out to $626,000, rounded to $630,000. It happened when this came out. There was a solicitation from Westcog that was due within about a week and a half or 2 weeks. I talked to Westcog. They said this is fully. It would be part of what they would consider. We've talked to them, we've submitted it, but it's one of those that they're going to consider, and we're still talking with them. When we submitted it, we said we haven't got the town approval on this at this point, but we want to at least get into the line of consideration on this. I have sent both Chuck Ballard and Jason Hyde went to the most recent T2 class about 2 weeks ago on this, and they said there's an awful lot of information that came back, but the new technology on the lights is really the way a lot of towns are going now. They're supposed to be they're smart lights, and that was probably the one that was recommended to us. Anyway, I wanted we talked to the mayor. The mayor, I will tell you, he challenged us on it. The conversation was a good conversation that he had with us. Concerned about what does it do to the traffic in the rest of the town. If we put two lights there, how does it impact it? That would be something as we go forward. If the town is interested, we will consider go back and look and say, okay, how does it impact the roundabout further back on the road? How does it impact 67 to 02, that intersection? So,
another thing, as the council, we need to be cognizant of is once we own these lights, then and they're smart lights, we now then are also responsible on an ongoing operation. You also have to have people there that know how these lights work. So that would be additional staff or training for these lights. So it's just something that we need, I think, as the council need to be cognizant of, that you have the $630,000 upfront cost
Per light.
per light.
No, that was,
For
Both lights.
that was
I
for
mean.
both lights, yeah.
Both lights, but then you have the operating costs, which we can get and bring back to the council as well.
Have you, Jack, you mentioned those signs that light up and say "stop ahead"? You know, I've seen them.
Yeah.
So that's. Do you have any idea what that costs?
Oh, those signs are about $3,000 per sign.
3,000?
Yeah.
630?
Yeah. Well, we could,
I mean, but something to try anyway. I just think we've all seen those kinds of signs, and several people have, after this has become a discussion here, have said to me, what about the signs that start blinking as you come down the hill? I think most of the people who come down Hine Hill know perfectly well there's a stop sign there, but for, to remind them or alert them, I don't know.
But I would think also, like you said, people are stopping at the stop sign.
Yeah.
They're just
Getting
trying to get out.
Right. Well,
So I don't know that helps
But many
anything.
people try to get out between cars. This is something I see all the time. And it's a big potential for an accident if the person moving towards town or going the other way doesn't slow down because they just pull out. I understand it's frustration. You're sitting there waiting and car after car goes by. I don't know, I have no solution. Just curious what the cost was for those flashing signs.
to your point, that was why our first, we went out there, I mean, Mark and myself went out there probably a year and a half ago. Our goal was to try to put a mini roundabout at Hine Hill Road. We just, with the home, as you see the home
Yeah, it's
spacing
just
there,
too small.
the road, the river, we couldn't make it fit. You know, I think that's the least invasive, but,
Yeah.
you know, if you can make it, so we actually, Mark had looked at, having come out on Hine Hill Road and only be able to take a right turn and go down a ways, and where we had a little more space, maybe putting a roundabout and sending people back. Again, we
That's
don't
hard.
have a lot of space anywhere. Going
Same at
down that way.
Fordyce, that would be perfect, but where
Yeah,
do you
where do we-
turn them
where do we
around?
put it?
Yeah,
That would make
right.
the town Facebook page much more entertaining, though.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
So,
jeez.
People use it too.
yeah.
Well, thanks, Jack.
We wanted to give you the options, what we're looking at
Right,
anyway.
right.
So what's the next step?
Like, right now, I think the next step is, you know, we were putting together some more information.
Right.
And then I think the mayor wanted to have another meeting about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think as the mayor said, I'd like to see more comprehensive cost estimate, including
Yeah.
operational
And
expenses, what does it add to our budget
Right.
on an annual basis?
And
Traffic
who's,
implications.
And
you have to have
traffic.
somebody who knows how to do that. It could be a 24-hour-a-day thing, could happen anytime. Maintenance.
A lot of towns, and I didn't, there's actually companies, because of the smart lights thing, is a lot of municipalities who have more lights than we would have, actually contract that out instead of having a staff person.
Right.
We have a guy right in town that does this.
You contract it out and you have that person.
Right.
watch
Well,
the
that's
lights
good.
for you.
We have a
That's
leading
good.
contractor in town that does
Yeah.
this type of lighting around the state.
Yeah.
But we own no other traffic light.
No, we don't, those would be our first two.
Wow.
How'd we get away
I
with
would have
that?
never guessed that.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. All right.
Item 9,
Greg?
Greg Ospow, Finance Director update.
We got time.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the financial update for October. The auditors have completed their field work, and I should receive the draft audit for review shortly. I have launched the FY25 budget season and created the budget file for departments to begin entering their data. The department requests are due by January 5th. Revenues. Revenues are in good shape, with the majority being at or above the 33% straight line average. Interest income is at 101.6% of collections. All future collections will be surplus in that account.
Taxes are at 56.9%, with current taxes collected at 57.1% of budget. Revenues are in fine shape overall, with the exception of Fire Marshal, who's lagging behind on a straight line basis. Expenditures. Expenditures on a cash basis are at 39% of budget. Salaries are overall running at approximately the straight line average of 33% as expected. Other than what was previously reported, I see no outstanding issue with expenditures at this time. In conclusion, on a cash basis, revenues overall are $54,736,831.71, and expenditures are at $36,700,455.52, leaving a positive cash flow of $18,036,376.19.
Good job. And when do you think the audit would be back?
The draft audit, I just reached out to them today to ask them when I can expect it. I haven't gotten a response, but our filing is due with the state by the end of December. So I'm hopefully, within the next week, because I have to review it, tie numbers out, and have a give and take with the auditors. So.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, Chris?
What did you mention the shortfall was in the fire marshal's office?
Pardon me?
I thought I heard you mention a shortfall in the fire marshal's office?
No, they're just not trending they're trending below the 33% straight line average.
For what?
I have to go to the tail of the tape, Chris.
Okay.
Let's see. Just bear with me. Fire marshal, yeah, they're at 19% of overall collections of their budget, when on a straight line basis, you would expect them to be at 33%.
And do we know if that's normal or not at this stage?
No, I haven't had a chance to speak to the fire marshal.
It's about normal, could they accelerate?
A seasonality to it.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Collection could
Got it.
vary.
Yeah.
And what was that, 104%? What was the one at 100%?
That's interest income.
Interest income.
Interest income.
And just one other question. So how does one get a copy of the audit? Like a member of the public or?
That's filed online, both online on the town's website, and there'll also be a copy of the audit at the library, at town clerk.
Okay. And have we received any more of the opioid funds or do we know that? Because I remember more was coming in, and I don't know what the total is and where it's sitting, so it's hard to know.
I think there's another tranche that's due. I believe it's sometime this month, I believe.
So it's just the 17,000 that we got, the one. And we
I'll check, Hillary. I don't want to tell you something different. All right. Any other questions for Greg?
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Good job.
Okay.
Okay, item number 10 would be our tax assessor and
Brian?
Can you ask for?
possible action on some abatement.
I always have to go last.
For the record, Brian Lastra, Town Assessor. Got a couple of tax abatement applications that have been filed. The first one, we'll start with 280 Danbury Road, so warehouse, storage building. I got a application from Joe Welch of Welch Holdings LLC, the owner of the property. This pertains to the construction of a one-story warehouse storage building. Measures 2,400 square feet in size. You probably have noticed it. It's going to hold materials and equipment associated with the business, the retail flooring business owned by Mr. Welch, Northeast Carpet and Flooring. I analyzed the application in terms of the tax deferral ordinance. The property is located in the industrial, commercial, the IC zone. The property will be used for storage of materials and equipment, and the cost of the improvements exceeds the minimum investment required, which is $50,000. To give you a summary of the impact of the abatement, the current assessment of the property is $400,860, and it generates $11,620 in taxes. So the assessment will increase to $474,360. So it's going to increase by $73,500 based on this new construction of this new building. So the annual tax attributable to the new construction is $2,130 per year using our current mill rate. So basically, if you grant the 100% abatement, you're abating $2,130 per year for 5 years. Now, obviously, with the new building, there's going to be new equipment that's going to go in. That's with respect to the business, the flooring business. Right. So it looks to me it's going to be about $2,000 per year in taxes on the new additional personal property. So it's basically a kind of a wash in a way. So we're going to generate personal property tax revenue even though we're abating the taxes on the building.
So Brian, just for edification, those that are watching and here in the council, when we look at abatements, other towns do the same. I mean, with all your vast experience.
Sure.
You look at these in a time frame of about 20 years, which would it be for a mortgage if you're going to get financing.
Right.
You look at these things in like a 20-year time span. So if that was the case just on this particular one, and it's much more apparent with the next one that we'll be talking about.
Right.
But just here, if you did nothing, right? If we didn't allow him to grow his business or whatever, we'd be getting taxes at the current mill rate of, what is it, 11,620.
Right.
And that'd be for 20 years, right?
Right.
Now, if you do this and we allow the abatement for the 5 years, okay, that's $2,130 differential for 5 years, which is $10,650. But you amortize that over 20 years. Now you're getting $31,950 the town is in today's mill rate,
right?
Let alone what it'll be then, right? And then you talk about the ancillary additional equipment, which you think is going to be about how much a year?
Right, about $2,000.
Okay, so another $2,000 a year. That's another $40,000 within the 20-year span. Let alone new jobs, new inventory, everything else. So comparing apples to apples, the town would be up $71,950 if we did this versus not, because he wouldn't have built the building.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And is it true there's no abatement on the additional, the $2,000 in equipment?
Right.
That should come.
Correct.
That stays.
Right, so that, we get that right away.
Correct.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the abatement as brought forward by our tax assessor on the 280 Danbury Road property.
Any discussion? Sure.
Procedural question with these tax abatement situations, because I feel like the last one that we were talking about, I remember in our discussion that it was, if they meet these criteria, we give them the tax abatement. But that's not right, right? It's that we do consider the presentation, we consider the components of the presentation, and then we vote as a council. It's not that if they are over 50,000, if they're in the zone, and then we must give them the abatement, right? I just need clarification.
Yes, so Hillary, the tax abatement policy is approved by town council.
Yeah.
States that if you follow these guidelines, which is why Brian is our eyes, let's just say.
Right.
If it falls within those parameters, we are going to give them that abatement.
But it's still, so it says so I pulled up the ordinance just to see, because I didn't understand how it could be so black and white, and then why you need the vote just as a rubber stamp. But it says the determination to grant or deny the benefits authorized by this ordinance shall be in the sole judgment and discretion of the town council.
Correct.
So meaning, if we think,
Joe?
maybe with the next one, or what, if we thought something coming at us, even though they met these three things, was not good for the town of New Milford, we could vote no on a tax abatement. Is that correct?
Joe?
That's right. I mean, like you said, the ordinance, the town council has the final say.
Okay.
Right.
It's a good distinction to
Could we
make
be
clear.
opening ourselves up to a lawsuit, though, for some sort of discriminatory practice?
That's a good question.
I don't know
Yeah.
about that per se. I mean, the ordinance was carefully drafted, and I think we considered at the time that we drafted all potential pitfalls that the town could face. It's a discretionary decision by the town, so to the extent a party disagrees with the ordinance, they could claim the ordinance is legally ineffective. They could appeal, they could challenge the ordinance. I think we're on solid ground with how it's drafted. But to the extent there's
Could you not, and this is going to be a crazy hypothetical, but just for example, could you come up with a crazy reason, you know what, I don't like that guy who's asking for it. Let's not give it to him.
But the
Could
council-
we be
town
open for a
council.
lawsuit?
The council
Well,
would
I
have
mean,
to vote it, though. You know,
If
we'd
the
all
council
have to
voted that way, we
agree.
don't like that guy.
Well, if that's on the record, that would not be beneficial for the council. So, the council has to look at the
But we'd be
facts. I mean, they have to assess the
discouraging
facts.
business.
No,
You know that,
I
right?
get it. I
know
get it.
what
I'm
you're
good. I
saying,
just,
yeah.
Yeah, the end.
I think we have to be very careful on any, for our rationale for not approving one.
Yes.
Yeah. But the end all be all lies with the town council.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so,
Okay. Any other discussion on this abatement? Okay. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
10B, Brian,
Okay.
561 Danbury Road.
Right, 561 Danbury Road. We received a tax deferral application from M&R Real Estate, Inc. And the parcel, which is 2.61 acres in size, also will allow for the outside storage of trucks, equipment, materials, boats, and recreational vehicles. So currently, a legally pre-existing, non-conforming, single-family dwelling exists on the property. So this 5,200 square foot building will serve as vehicle storage and maintenance for ABC Fuel LLC, which is a Brookfield fuel oil delivery company. And the building's construction will also allow for other tenants to occupy that building also. So this property, again, is in the industrial commercial zone. It will be used for the storage of materials, vehicles, and equipment, and the costs of the improvements exceed the investment required of $50,000. So to give you a quick breakdown of taxes and assessments, currently, before the new construction, it's currently assessed at $374,970, and it's generating taxes $10,870 per year
Property?
using the current mill rate.
Talk
Yes.
about the property or interior,
It's the property.
The current, yeah, the property before the construction.
not the goods inside?
No, it's the
No.
property.
Because basically what we had prior to this building, so we had a lot with a single-family dwelling. It was with commercially zoned, so that's, the dwelling and the land totaled $374,970 in assessment, and that's generating a $10,870 in taxes currently. So after this building is completed, the assessment will increase by $182,700, and that would generate $5,300 in taxes, that new construction. So that's really what the abatement is, in terms of dollars, would equal per year for 5 years. Now, with respect to personal property taxes on a building of this size, it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of $3,000 a year, personal property, just talking about equipment. And then this fuel company obviously owns fuel delivery trucks. They're very expensive. So they're over $200,000 per vehicle. So the vehicles that they'll bring to New Milford will total in taxes per year, about 13,500. That's on motor vehicle taxes.
How close to a residence is this property?
Okay, so as you come up Route 7, and you're in the vicinity of the Faith Church, the school,
Yes.
it's on the other side of the highway.
Right.
So it's really in an area where there were, 50 years ago, probably farms. So it's
There are
first
3
in
or
a,
4 houses.
yeah, it's first in a line of about 4 or 5 houses, and then it's open
At
land.
the other end of that group of 4 or 5 houses is somebody who's put up a big fence, and they have tons of things behind that fence.
That's this property. That's this
Well,
property.
that's already, has a building, doesn't it?
So that building just went up this summer. It had the
Right.
house.
Yeah.
And, but they put the fence up a couple years ago. And now we're starting to see, first of all, the fuel trucks
Yes.
are parked there now.
Yes.
And then you're starting to see boats, they're obviously leasing spots to
Right.
tenants.
So the 5,200 square foot that's what I see there now?
Yeah, that's what's there now.
Okay.
Just in the process
Are
of.
they moving their business into New Milford, or is it just parking of the vehicles? Does anybody know?
Yes, pretty much, they're moving all of the business entity, to New Milford.
So we
which
really
is
want the trucks and the
trucks,
taxes on
right.
the
It's
trucks,
not-
right.
it's
I don't
not-
care about the computer.
Not fuel
But they
storage or
will-
anything like that.
They will be taxed
Right.
in New Milford.
Right, not fuel storage or anything
Right.
like that, but the trucks will be registered
Taxes
in
on
New
trucks.
Milford, taxed in New Milford.
So Brian, just for the numbers, for the edification of the council and those that are watching, currently over a 20-year run rate, if you're using the current taxes of $10,870,
Right.
that's $217,400. If we go with the new building, that moves up to $296,900.
Right,
Then you got to add in the $3,000 a year for the new office
right.
equipment.
Yep,
That's another $60,000. And then the trucks,
right.
of the numbers that you use, brings another $270,000 over a 20-year time span. So you're going from, let me just make sure I got the exact number correct. You've gone from a $217,400 over 20-year tax. With this new incentive, the town of New Milford will now have $626,900.
Yeah. Right.
Chris?
Yeah, I would just, Tom was right. To me, it's a no-brainer. But I think this is a great example of why this program works. We have somebody who had a little investment in New Milford, and they're actually situated in a neighboring town, but they've chosen to invest more in New Milford. And I'm sure it's for a lot of reasons, but this is, I gotta believe, towards the top of the list, so.
Not only this, they will talk to other people and say, hey, I got this abatement from this town, go and check it out. It's a word of mouth. That's pretty
And
much
as
what
Brian can tell you, we're not alone. There are
Oh, yeah.
Danbury,
all towns.
Brookfield,
Right.
they're all vying
Right,
for
but
the same people.
before we did this, we were losing out on
absolutely.
businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we had one and then it kind of fell down and now we reignited.
So I'd like to move that we,
Is there any concern about fuel storage? I mean, that's a lot of fuel tank, is there any concern about that, or that this company, they know what they're doing, or there's, I don't know. It's, I'm
I
throwing
know
it out
Hillary.
there.
I know Hillary. They've been around for a very long
Yeah,
time.
I know that they fill our tanks, I love them, they're great.
And I know they have DEEP and Department of Environmental Protection. There's a lot of regulations that
Bind them to what
Correct.
they can do.
Then
Okay.
I'm
sure our fire marshals
then I guess
involved.
big
trucks
storage like
only,
Layton and
not
everybody else.
storage, right, Brian?
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
The
So
trucks,
it's the oil that's in the truck when they park.
90% of the time, those trucks at the end of the day are empty.
right.
They come in empty, they go to New Haven or Bridgeport to load up on the rack early in the morning before they start coming back. So at the end of the day, they're
They
parking
serve their
empty trucks.
customers and then, right,
Okay,
they
so
turn
I'd
back.
like to move that we approve the abatement on the 561 Danbury Road based upon our assessor, Mr. Lastra's information.
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. Have a nice night.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
One enough, everybody?
All
Yeah,
those in favor?
buonanotte.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.